OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Ah, yes, the old familiar scent of a Monday morning where Manchester United are in crisis and we're a week into the season. We're one day into the season. Good also of Aston Villa to, get it over and done with. Eoin, I would say, early doors. That now I don't really have to care anymore. It's a constant rearguard battling relegation for whoever the next manager is that will come in 6 to 8 weeks' time.
Let's just start us off with a scorching hot take straight away. Is Steven Gerrard actually the front runner to win the sack race?
I don't know if he's going to win the sack race. They'll let somebody else do that, but they'll be the ones with the finger hovering over the button going, as soon as somebody else goes, we're not going to be first, but we're going to be second. Poof, pop. Oh look, he's gone.
Did you feel signs of this at the end of last season?
Yes, of course, Eoin. Of course, Eoin. Of course we did. Of course we did. But we ignored them because we're sports fans and we're like, that's it's all makes perfect sense. And in the grand scheme of things, when he starts to talk let's have European football, let's dream of winning the Europa League. Maybe you should qualify for the Europa League first, but that's okay. It's going to happen. It's like, as the Villa fans, the intelligent Villa fans on Twitter keep pointing out, we appear to have skipped a step. The bit where the team got any good. The bit where you come in and you go, we're gonna set standards, we're gonna be go-getters, we're gonna be a thrusting forward movement organisation. But then you're actually just shit. That they skip that bit where you get good and you set a team in place and it doesn't really look like he knows what he's doing, does it? It doesn't really look like he knows what he's doing.
I guess my question was more I think, did you vocalise this at the end of last season as well?
I don't know.
Everybody was like, no. Steven Gerrard, he started this job really well and he got a good first 3 or 4 results, and therefore everything that we've seen recently just doesn't count. They did plateau at the end of last season, right? Oh,
they had a terrible end of the season. They at one stage, I was heard that they could finish 6th here if they just start winning, if they can turn their reasonable performances into good performances. But I don't know if you remember, there was a game against Leeds where they won and that kind of set Leeds it pointed out that Leeds weren't very good. But actually Leeds killed them in that game and Villa scored with their 2 chances. And I was like, doesn't look great here. And then it's like Tyrone Mings needs to look me in the eye before he can play for this team again. What a big time Billy Big Bollocks stupid thing to say. Look me in the eye because we're going to fight. It's like, what? You're a manager. You're a manager now. You're not a player. I suppose this goes back to the one thing that I'm relatively consistent about is if you win the genetic lottery and, you apply your talent, apply hard work to your talent, you become one of the best footballers in the world. The chances of you winning the genetic lottery twice and then also being a really good, top 10%, top 2% football manager are very, very small. And it appears as if Steven Gerrard won the genetic lottery once, but not twice. Yeah. I may well be overreacting to the first game of the season. May well.
No, not at all.
Who knows?
How could you possibly overreact to the first game of the season? Nobody ever does that.
Yeah, fair enough. Because it's not just the first game of the season. It is the end of last season. And it's the sounds that he makes about the players. Instead of trying to get the squad to be competitive, a bunch of players have been burned out and won't play they won't play again. You can see that. But they're very valuable players that Villa invested loads of money in. And Villa aren't Man United where the money doesn't matter. The money matters because you have an opportunity cost for it. So that is one of those. It's good though that I don't have to care about this and don't have to feel any emotional investment when I'm just checking the scores going, oh yeah, they've lost again. I suppose makes sense, doesn't it?
Regular listeners to the show will have heard your genetic lottery point before, and what it always says to me is that you're just jealous of somebody potentially winning the genetic lottery twice. You're just jealous of that potential, of that eventuality where somebody will come along having had a fantastic football career and
they are freaks.
Win a Premier League title.
They are the freaks. They are the super ones. They are the super race. They are the master race, really. Those people who are brilliant at 2 things, they are the absolute freaks amongst us, and we should be doing all the DNA tests that we can. Because when the robots take over, we want those people fighting them. That's what we want.
Just Pep Guardiola, and he's the only person who will be capable of finding them.
Very good footballer, but not Steven Gerrard class footballer.
Yeah, fair.
Do you know, not the superstar of. I'm sure if you were to go back now and look at the stats, he was very important and pivotal in the Barcelona team that was the first one that ever won the Champions League for his European Cup, as it was, and so probably might even be underrated as a footballer, but not not a guaranteed starter, not like a world-class superstar, not a Ballon d'Or competitor season in, season out. Like a very, 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 very good footballer. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm picking nits here, but if you're picking a team at the gates of hell to save you, you're picking Steven Gerrard as a footballer ahead of him. Your manager it's not even a conversation.
I tell you what, if you're at the gates of hell and the robots are coming thirsty for your blood, the one thing that will dissuade them from killing you is Steven Gerrard being like, look me in the eye before you kill me.
Exactly.
Look me in the eye.
Tyrone
Talk to me
Mings,
like a man.
Look me in the eye, Tyrone. It's like, what? He's been pretty good for us before you got here. While you were swanning around Scotland, like doing whatever it was.
That's what they call managing Rangers, is it?
OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. We'll get into this a bit more in the performance rankings. I noticed there's a bit of Yearism going on behalf of Arsenal in our performance rankings this morning. We'll get to that in just a second. If you want to get in touch with us, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Daniel Harris is going to join us at 8:10 for a weekly check-in on how things are not going well for Manchester United, it turns out. Sports pages and sports news with Colin Mullaney at 8:35. Fiona Hickey is going to look back on a very dramatic end to the Camogie All-Ireland yesterday. Kilkenny victorious in the end. Phil Thompson is going to join us at 9:10. A stuttering start. That might be the little gap. Is the title race over? That's the first question we're asking from Liverpool's perspective at 9:10 with Phil Thompson this morning. Then more reaction from Brian Kerr, who will calm the overreaction that we've already invested in already this morning here on OTB AM. But at 7:37, it's time for the Gillette Labs performance rankings.
That wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. Our performances was just lacked that intensity.
Boom. Right.
It's like May all over again. It felt that every single Monday morning last season we would come on here and that top, very red, very scarlet looking tab that we have there would just have Manchester United beside it every Monday. And every Monday we'd come in and be like, not again. But it's just the unavoidable task of shoving Manchester United into the bottom of the performance rankings, as has been the case for the last 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons at this point. They disappointed Sugar Daddy Avram Glazer in the flesh yesterday, just to make things worse for them, and it was quite a comical start to life under Erik ten Hag. My favourite part, of course, was Danny Welbeck, a former Manchester United reject, running rings around them, but not just running rings around them because he's Danny Welbeck, but also running rings around them because he had a stomach issue during the week. And Graham Potter said he would have strapped the toilet onto his backside to play. It would have slowed him down, though. He was amazing.
I think it's a misquote. I think it wouldn't have slowed him down. But we all know that, a toilet strapped to your arse would actually have slowed you down.
He does know his physics, Graham Potter, and Welbeck was pretty good yesterday. It doesn't help Harry Maguire when his right back goes on a bit of an adventure to try and close down Leandro Trossard, and Trossard looks like Iniesta in the left wing playing that ball through, and it's disaster time for United straight away, and that sets the tone for the whole afternoon, where if United go a goal down at home right now, it seems like it's the most difficult place in the world for them to get a result. And both Ten Hag and Harry Maguire said in the aftermath that they just lost some element of belief midway through that first half. So that's a really big problem for them at the moment, because next time they're playing the Theatre of Dreams, they're going to be thinking about that. We can't go 1-0 down. We can't get off to a bad start here. They need to score first, it feels, for them to win at home at the moment.
It's just a glorious reintroduction of some of last season's plot lines, which we thought were over. It's like the writers are doing an excellent job here. You didn't think it was possible that they could tie all these strands together, but they managed to do it in 90 minutes, where Ronaldo comes off the bench and they score fairly soon afterwards. It's like, ooh, what should he have started? He said he was fit to start. Ten Hag decided he wasn't. Fred the Red high-fiving Erik ten Hag and the crowd going wild in the pre-match. It's like they had all blinked away everything that they'd learned from last season, and then he picked the last season team.
Yeah.
Basically just last season team. What? You can't do that.
Like, people asking the question, will Manchester United be better this season, while seeing a team sheet that includes Fred and Scott McTominay? It didn't seem like a question that was a very, very optimistic question, I would have thought.
We're going to play out from the back. It's like, we've got a goalkeeper who's not very good at that. Should we do this? Do you think we should go ahead with this, even though the goalkeeper seems to be slightly, again, I don't know if there's a collective amnesia, but he's grand. He's like the highest paid or second highest paid goalkeeper in world football, and he's just not good at the thing that Manchester United are trying to do.
Yeah, I know. Like, yeah, that's obviously a significant problem. But imagine if midway through last season you pulled the Manchester United fan aside and was like, at the start of next season, Christian Eriksen's going to be your starting false nine. It was like, we said that to Manchester United before his miraculous comeback last season. Like, they would have been like, what are you talking about? And it's honestly been one of the best stories in sport. It's been absolutely fantastic. But I don't think anybody at Manchester United, even at the start of the summer window, even after his miraculous comeback with Brentford, would have said that would be a good way to start next season. And then they've seen that gaping wound and have just gone for the nearest container of salt, because apparently Marko Arnautovic is on the way to the club, and they are preparing an £8 million bid
for a 33-year-old
for Odion Igalo 2.0, somebody who brings Chinese football experience to the Premier League.
Well, I don't know. I was going to say, were we wrong about Mourinho, but then he stank the joint out at Spurs afterwards, so you have to say no. But he says the job he did at Manchester United to get them to second was the best job he's ever done, because you've no idea what's going on behind the scenes. And I'm starting to think he might be right. It's right. It's certainly, if he could get that team at the moment to finish second, it's up there with winning the Champions League with Porto. Like, it really is. I mean, this team at the moment stinks. They stink so bad. And they were fighting in the stands. It was a scuffle in the stands. That happens. But it's only caught on camera. They're all wearing lanyards, though. Do football fans wear lanyards? I would have thought that maybe that was kind of a posh corporate section or something in the photographs. There's photographs in one of the English papers this morning of fighting in the streets. I'm like, wow. Panic in the streets of Manchester, except only on one half of the thing. Is there an easy way out? Can two good midfielders fix this? Like, if you sub in two world-class midfielders who all of a sudden are good, is that enough to get this whole thing fixed?
No, and like when you're talking about getting something fixed in the context of Manchester United, you're obviously talking about them becoming title contenders. I think a fix this season is getting them into competition for a top four place, which even at this moment looks like a bit of an ask, given the form of, or given just how good some of the teams ahead of them currently look. But like, I've seen a very good point made over the past couple of days, and it's that, like, Ten Hag and his signings and the players that maybe he wants to sign, as well as those that he signed, if we include De Jong, are very Ten Hag players. And like, that feels like a good thing. Like, if you rewind, it's like, okay, the manager has a good degree of control at the football club, but in reality, is there anybody else helping him out there? Is there like a recruitment department that's actually throwing their weight behind this whole thing, that it's not actually just Ten Hag's ideas that are being heard and are being executed on? Like, is there joined up thinking higher up in the club, or is it simply a situation where it's like, what player do you like, Eric? Grant, let's see if we can get the money for him, and maybe in some cases we'll be able to make that signing happen. Granted, that could be a bit of a strange argument to make, because in general you want your manager to be supported. But like, reading some of the writing in the aftermath of yesterday, it is like straight back to last season, and even more intense. Like, Laurie Whitwell in The Athletic had like a couple of cutting paragraphs here. He says, afterwards, the loudest fans were aligned to Brighton. They stayed to salute their team, and especially Graham Potter, who has reorganised his side amid the loss of two of his most important players in Basuma and Cucurella. It can be revealed United declined an offer to consider Potter in the hunt for Solskjaer's successor due to his lack of Champions League experience. United also stepped away from signing Moise Caicedo, who instead moved to Brighton in February 21 for £4.5 million. The 20-year-old was excellent in midfield at Old Trafford. Danny Welbeck, sold by Louis van Gaal, gave a superb display at centre-forward. United started Eriksen up top. And the juxtaposition, even with Brighton at this point, not even with a Liverpool or a Manchester City or a Chelsea or a Spurs, is something that is making them a little bit painful at this point, which kind of shows how far they've fallen. Or it just kind of shows how vast the tentacles of Manchester United pain now reach, where they can play anybody and you're like, oh, we should have got that guy, or we should have got that manager.
We had him.
Yeah.
Was it Caicedo with the back heel that set up the move for the goal?
Yeah, I think so.
There was a brilliant bit of commentary from Brian Kerr where he was talking about it's all right having a false nine, but it's no good if you've got no one playing 9 or 10 or 11. There's basically no one playing anywhere at the moment, and you're like, okay, the new movie is the same as the old movie. Now look, it's his first game, and I think from Ten Hag's perspective, I'm not judging them yet.
Yeah, no one's pointing the finger at Ten Hag, I don't think.
But it's very enjoyable to watch what's going on.
No question. Like, the thing with Ten Hag is that you would probably think that on the basis of yesterday, he's got a lot to learn. Like, it felt to me, even when they took off one of the midfielders, when they took off Fred, in the second half, things didn't diminish. In fact, they got a greater stranglehold of the game. Now, that may be because Brighton were 2-0 up and they were retreating anyway, but it does feel that maybe on the evidence of yesterday, you don't need both McTominay and Fred. But then again, we've been in this position before where you thought Manchester United managers could have come to that conclusion themselves, and that they realised that actually they kind of have to play them. So interesting times, to say the very least.
Park Stack says Q United to go on a 3-game unbeaten run. I mean, if the limit of their ambition is a 3-game unbeaten run, then perhaps Park, that might just be possible.
Well, then, look, we just need to soak in this moment, because this will be the last time Manchester United will be in the red in the performance rankings. They will not be back here any other Monday morning.
Thomas Maher says, did you know that Steven Gerrard's record at Villa is the same as Gary Neville's at Valencia? 110, drawn 5, lost 13, 35% win percentage, and that was before the weekend's match.
Wow.
I mean, I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just reading it out from our YouTube comments, right? This has not been fact checked. I mean,
sounds good.
Like, was Gary Neville's record that good? Frank says no emotional connection, Jar. After a 10-minute tirade. No, it's true, Frank. I'm like genuinely disappointed. I was looking forward to watching Premier League football where there was a hope of something happening. Like, you know, they've signed relatively well. There's a lot to like about the players. Somebody who's on Villa Twitter, he was like, Pochettino in. I was like, I mean, there are delusions of grandeur, and then there's like, and they're like, could we get him? Is that possible?
What'll happen is Pochettino will take over Aston Villa, beat Manchester United, and Manchester United will be like, we should have got that manager.
Exactly. Well, I would be happy with that. That would be a win, Owen. That would be a win. Right. So the Gary Neville record is true. I'm reliably informed here. To Gary Neville, do we need to that's not that bad in Valencia, is it? I mean, what do they expect? I suppose Valencia, like Villa, expect better. That's it, isn't it? They should expect. They should not have the tyranny of low expectations. I'm discovering this live in the moment here, folks. You can see that. Where's next, Owen?
Next is the All Blacks, and let's fast forward to our newspapers segment this morning and bring you some of the not the back pages, the front page of the New Zealand Herald this morning. It says Ian Foster and the All Blacks, it is time for change, and it is quite blurry. It's time for an end to Ian Foster's time as head coach of the All Blacks, goes at the front of this morning's New Zealand Herald. The Herald takes no pleasure in calling for him to go, but Foster, a decent man who is out of his depth in a brutal business, must exit the role, whether he is paid out to leave, as he should be, or he voluntarily step aside. So the biggest newspaper in the country of the All Blacks has taken an editorial stance on the All Blacks head coach, which is just a remarkable step. We've been told that the All Blacks don't really get into the business of sacking head coaches, but the pressure at this point seems to have mounted that you can't really see him surviving beyond next weekend should they lose once again in South Africa, and it will be a hell of a turnaround for them not to lose once again in South Africa. The Springboks beating them with their largest margin of victory in 94 years on Saturday. 26-10 was the full-time score, and it could have been so much worse as well. I think Mark Sheahan in one of the South African papers was saying that some of the All Blacks are imposters to the legacy of the All Blacks and wouldn't be fit to tie the laces of some of those giants in black. And it could have been closer to a 30-point differential, but the respect the boys in green have for those in black kept it reasonable. So it's Ellis Park this weekend and done for Ian Foster if your eyes are open at all to what's going on at the moment. And the only question is who comes in. Is he suggesting that the Springboks went easy on them there? Yeah. Wow. Yeah, the Springboks took pity on the All Blacks, according to Mark Sheahan, which is really not what you want to be seeing as a New Zealand supporter. But we were told after the series defeat to Ireland that he had 2 games to save his job, and the first of those 2 games has gone badly wrong for him. I did see it's Argentina in back-to-back games after that, so maybe if he survives this weekend, it's like repeat Argentina twice at home. I mean, really, if you were thinking strategically, and we know Razzie does, do you just put out a team and go, lads, look, let's keep this chump in charge here for the World Cup, because obviously he ain't going to fix this. So let's lose this game, but store it in your memory bank. Let them win the 2 games against Argentina. Let them, we've changed, we're better, and then let's just crush them in the World Cup. Yeah, could Razzie possibly overthink something in such a way? That's not overthinking. That's like one step ahead. That's not proper chess at all. That's like, here, listen, these guys, come on. Like we assume that a coaching change will automatically lead to the All Blacks winning the World Cup. They're down to 5th now in the world rankings. I think it might be their lowest ever spot in the world rankings. England have now leapfrogged them into the top 4 in the world rankings. But, like, I mean, some of the writing we've seen over the last couple of months has been these players aren't fit to lace legends' boots. They just aren't good enough. Like, their skill execution has been very, very poor, and they look very, very blunt in attack. Like, you give the All Blacks the ball now and you're happy enough that they might not be able to cause you too much damage unless one of their individuals comes up with something special. So is this actually just a really poor generation of players, relatively speaking, that just aren't going to be a contender at all at next year's World Cup? Are we just overthinking this entirely? Like, because that does seem to be the fear at the moment, that, like, France, for example, are waking up this morning being like, what are you doing, South Africa? Stop. Let Ian Foster bring them into the next World Cup. That's one other contender away from our quest to win our home World Cup. So I don't know, like, maybe Razor is like the guy that they all speak about down there, is like the next great coach, and he's going to be the person who brings them to glory, and that'll be really interesting to see him in charge. But himself, Robertson or Schmidt, you would think is going to be All Blacks coach going into next year's World Cup.
It will be interesting to see how quickly they make the change, because the clamour for change is now, it appears so great that change is coming. And again, you know, it's great of the writers to be able to tie all this together in season 2. We thought that maybe it was anyway. Right, so a few more. United are nearly gone bad enough to have their own All or Nothing documentary, says John Claffey. I forgot this show turns into the Manchester United finger pointing hour every August. Well, last year it lasted a bit longer than August.
Oh, we went all the way to April, May.
Yeah. And then he's been spelled every Monday, says somebody else talking to him about that. Okay, so what's next? They're the red this week. We pity you All Blacks. We're sorry for your trouble, and we're really enjoying it.
Next up is just Irish in action this weekend in English football. A bit of a mixed bag. It was good to see a couple of debuts. Obviously, seeing Gavin Bazunu start for Southampton was brilliant. He made a couple of good saves. Wasn't much he could do about the goals. He did concede 4 of them. We'll get to Spurs in a moment. Spurs were exceptional, to be fair, and they look a hell of an outfit this season, even better than how they finished last season. And then obviously the other big debutant in the Premier League was Nathan Collins, who also had a bad result to kind of stick down beside his name for his full, I guess, Wolves debut anyway. So Leeds beat them late on. There was a bit of a not a schmozzle, there was a bit of a disagreement between Jesse Marsh and Bruno Lage on the sideline afterwards. That was kind of the big takeaway from that game. But Nathan Collins obviously comes away with a defeat. I don't think, again, you could be pointing the finger too much at him. So a bit of a mixed bag on that front. You had Conor Ronan and Joe Hodge on the bench for Wolves as well for that game. So that'll be one to keep an eye on as the season develops. But I guess the big winner in the Premier League from an Irish perspective was Mark Travers. Bournemouth with that result, obviously. You will have been paying close attention to that, Ger. It was a great result, clean sheet for him. The thing is, they have signed someone else in goals. They bought a 33-year-old Neto from Barcelona. You'd like to think that as a 33-year-old he will be back up to Mark Travers, but as his first season back in the Premier League, you might think he's walking something of a tightrope, that if he goes out of form or anything like that, they do have another guy in there, but there's no sign that that's going to happen. So as I say, a bit of a mixed return from Irish players. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens as Spurs continue on this run with Matt Doherty, and if he'll get minutes. Emerson looked good at the weekend. Matt Doherty sprung late on from the bench. You'd like to think, with the way Conte was talking about last season, that in some competition at least Doherty will get a very good opportunity to stake his claim in that starting 11 and may well get back in there and may well keep that as the season goes on. And then you had Shane Duffy, of course, who came on in injury time for Fulham as well. And then there was just a couple of really positive stories from the Championship. I'm not sure, did you see that stat on Saturday? Era Guide had it that 11% of the players that started in the Championship on Saturday were Irish, 21 out of 198 of them. So this is our league now, if we want to look at Irish players. Shane Long obviously scoring for Reading on his return. You had James McLean scoring. You had Will Smallbone winning man of the match on his full debut on loan with Stoke City. So positive news. The other thing then further afield, and it's kind of one that we're going to be keeping an eye on as the season goes on, is the Irish footballers in Italy. And Aaron Connolly missed his chance to make his Coppa Italia debut because of a COVID issue again. So he's been pretty unlucky on that front down through the years. So we'll have to wait to see him over the next few weeks. So amber, fair enough, I think, for Irish players, and hopefully things start ticking into green, because, as I say, I think Nathan Collins and Gavin Bazunu, they had tough days at the office on Saturday, but neither can be criticised too much.
Yeah, I did see a little bit of backlash about the fact that Conor Cody's not in the Wolves team, and so I don't know, can they play together? Is Cody on the way out? I'm not sure. It was Ian Dark who was actually tweeting about that, and I didn't like with Bazunu. What do? You know, he just has to play. It's going to be a long season for Southampton. If you look at their transfer business, it's very strange that like most of their business is loan or city youngsters, and they're in the hunt for a bunch of loan players still. So there's a lot of business still to be done that will really decide which of those teams at the bottom, in that bottom 10, have enough quality to survive. You hope that from Southampton's perspective they do, because it'd be great for him to play in a team that had a bit of confidence and had some victories. He's definitely going to be busy. He's definitely going to get a lot of experience this season, and like ultimately as a goalkeeper, that's not a bad thing, really.
No, absolutely not. And I think somebody had it as well at the weekend that it's only 4 years since he made his debut for Shamrock Rovers. So this has been a very quick ascent from a 16-year-old into a 20-year-old who's just made his Premier League debut. So the thing is, like, there have been cases where a team is rooted to a relegation battle, which I think Southampton may well be all this season, and a defender or a goalkeeper just really stands out, and people can see the wood from the trees. You're not like, oh, that guy conceded 4 goals, therefore he's a bad goalkeeper. I think already from Saturday, people are like, I think Bazunu played well in spite of the fact that his team were under the cosh for pretty much the entire game. And I wouldn't be surprised to see that narrative develop over the course of the season, where Southampton are bad, but Southampton have a few bright sparks, and Gavin Bazunu being one of those bright sparks, and him not necessarily being a championship player next year, even if Southampton are a championship team. Yeah.
Il Pacino 88 says Gavin Bazunu is great for the Saints, really shocked by the level of criticism that he's got from the Saints supporters. No chance for any of the goals. That's going to happen.
I didn't realise there was like I saw there was like Portsmouth fans, alright, getting quite a bit of joy in Gavin Bazunu conceding 4 goals, which is just bizarre, really, given it was always going to be a temporary sojourn to Portsmouth. But I hadn't really seen the Southampton fans giving him stick.
Okay. Pogba has a lot to answer for yesterday, says Damien Fury. It's true. It is true, really. His attitude has infested the club so badly that it still hangs over, even though he's not there.
His attitude stunk yesterday.
Oh, it was terrible. You couldn't see him.
Body language.
He was anonymous. Absolutely anonymous. Yeah, all right. What's next?
Lads, it's Tottenham in the green this week. You say a year away Arsenal's chances, and we can talk about them in a minute. Maybe North London should have just been in the green of the performance rankings, but Tottenham Hotspur, other than maybe like an individual performance of like Erling Haaland, I think Tottenham Hotspur was the most striking performance from the weekend. I think it's nothing new. A lot of people would have predicted them to potentially even break the duopoly at the top of the Premier League this season. I say wait and see for just a couple of months before we can actually rush to that conclusion. But it's very hard to make a case that they're going to finish below Chelsea or below Arsenal or below Manchester United this season. I think they will finish third at worst this year, and that might be getting carried away with the first game of the season, but the evidence was there from last year. They have arguably the third best manager in the Premier League. Himself versus Tuchel maybe is a battle for that. You can make a case he's better than Tuchel. The attacking talent they had before Conte came in was excellent, and then they brought in Kulusevski last season. He is, he's doing great things for ginger people, let alone for Tottenham fans, and he is heralded as one of their heroes now at this point. You've got Richarlison still to make an impact. You've Perisic come off the bench at the weekend again, somebody who wasn't even there from the start of the game, and they were just awesome. It was just a complete barrage on Gavin Bazunu's goal. Obviously James Ward-Prowse scores a brilliant goal in the first half. But other than that, maybe they had one other chance. Other than that, there was no real opportunities. And Spurs, they're going to score a lot of goals this season, and they're going to be battling on 2 fronts, obviously, and that's why they've had to inflate the squad a little bit this season. But I think this Sunday they play Chelsea, and that'll be an early marker for Tottenham. Like it does feel like it's already a bit of a crossroads, if I can go that far, because if they lose to Chelsea on Sunday, it kind of feels like what I'm saying right now just blows up straight away, and it's like, well, that's a significant blow immediately, whereas now it feels like they're in a position to be like, we're better than Chelsea. And I don't think anybody's making an argument that Arsenal or Manchester United are better than Tottenham, but I think when it comes, you can make an argument about Chelsea possibly being better than Tottenham, and this Sunday Spurs can be like, nah, we're better than Chelsea. So I think it's relatively high stakes this Sunday, and it's a really exciting early game. Yeah.
It is a big game. Again, because it's so early, teams will find form and teams will find rhythms, and some of the signings will start to get match fit and all that. So there's still massive improvement to be made by these. But the thing is that it seems like Spurs are doing this off an architecture that they put in last year that really suits the group, that really suits the team, that they have all responded to Conte's probings, the wildness from that after the Burnley defeat last year. That seems to have sparked something, and the run that they're on has continued. Like, they do appear to be getting on quite well as individuals and as a collective, and we've seen under him in the past players have improved. So he's clearly a good coach, as in whatever coaching system and ticket he has with him gets the players to be better. Their transfers last year in the window immediately impacted the team. He didn't play most of the transfers at the weekend, so he's still got room to step this up and improve it and mix things around a bit. So I would be very, very, very excited if I was a Spurs fan.
Definitely. Like the subs bench was one of the best Spurs subs benches I've seen in a while on Saturday. So like a flavour of it is like Matt Doherty, Davinson Sanchez, Perisic, Fraser Forster, Jed Spence, Lucas Moura, Longley, Bissouma. That was their bench. Like the depth they have now means that, like, you'd be thinking maybe if City and Liverpool are still just a couple of inches ahead of them on the Premier League race. This feels like a squad that could do something in Europe, especially under Conte as well, where like they did under Poch all those years ago, they could cause an upset or two, and it wouldn't even be that much of an upset given some of the attacking talent they have. But like, we talk about Manchester United and some of the players that seem unsavable, or players that continue to let them down. It feels that there's been like a change in mentality with a couple of these Spurs players. Like Eric Dyer, for example, just looks a lot more reliable. It helps that he had two, I guess, centre-backs, maybe 1.5 centre-backs beside him on Saturday as well. And you've got the likes of Christian Romero and Davinson Sanchez in the squad, who are really, really good. And obviously Longley's come in, so it'll help that he's going to be playing alongside quality players. And maybe Dyer won't even be in the first choice defence come the mid part of the season. But these are all just brilliant questions for Conte to answer, and he was jumping around like a madman on Saturday afternoon as well. He's really into this job, and I think you made the point that maybe this could be a mid-term gig for Conte, because that's long-term in Conte years.
Everybody says, oh, it's Conte, he doesn't... Martin Lipps was like, oh, it's Conte, he never stays. But, like, he never stays because there's a reason to go. Like, the job he did at Juventus, and then the job with Italy... And then it was like, okay, I'm going to the Premier League, but it was Abramovich, so it was never going to last. And then after that, the job he does at Inter, but Inter are completely broke and sell his best players. Like, screw this, I'm out of here. Like, that doesn't mean that he will always leave because he always leaves. I think London might have its charms. If you're earning 10, 15 million a year, you might be able to have a nice lifestyle there.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you're starting a new career in Football Manager right now, like, Tottenham would be one of the teams you would pick. Like, it's an exciting job, objectively speaking. So Conte's probably going to be energised by this for a while, because chances are they won't win the Premier League this season, they won't win the Champions League, but they might come close. And then next season they're like, can we come closer? So it's exciting. They're constantly in the hunt, it feels. And again, look, they beat Southampton on Saturday. So it's and we already said that Southampton could be in a relegation battle. So I think the excitement is more a continuation from last season, as opposed to just getting carried away with Saturday. And to be fair, this Sunday they do come up against the Chelsea side, who, while they were, I want to say, fortunate on Saturday, but they grounded out on Saturday. There's still different parts of that team that look really impressive. Like Koulibaly was excellent on Saturday evening, I thought, and Thiago Silva as well. And Sterling just looks like somebody who's going to fit seamlessly into that Chelsea attack. So
Thiago Silva is Tom Brady. Like, at this stage, he's still playing at a very high level at a very advanced age. It is remarkable that he is able to do so. They do have £105 million invested in their left wing back position. It seems quite high.
Chelsea?
Yeah. It's like, how do we get to this situation?
Cucurella, yeah. Like, I mean, Tuchel is making the point that he could play along maybe other positions in the back, 3/5.
I hope so. I want a little bit of flexibility for all that money.
Like, he's a few million. You'd get Erling Haaland and have a few million spare for what they paid for Cucurella. Well, the fees that have been reported publicly anyway.
Yeah. It's just like the new owner is spending his money. He's got a big wad of cash in his pocket, and he wants to get something for it.
He does. He wants
shiny and new.
Yeah, and he wants to be associated with it, it seems.
Nice punch in the face to Man City as well. It's like, yeah, exactly. So, we've got an activist owner who's centrally involved in the stuff. Is that good or bad thing?
Well, I think it tells us that we can never properly write Chelsea out of contention any season. It seems foolish, what I just said, which is that Spurs will probably finish ahead of Chelsea, because they're always around.
Yeah, but will Tuchel like this? Because say say the team loses next week against Spurs, and Tuchel decides to like not pick one of the players or to sub off one of the players that the new owner has been personally invested in signing. Just it all feels a little bit Jerry Jones, the Dallas Cowboys to me. That like there's gonna be splashy stuff, and he's gonna be talking a lot. And it's like, I firmly believe this coach is going to win the Champions League for me, because he's already done it, but not for me. So I don't know. I see that one. You can see him just being an American version of Abramovich.
Yeah, and there could be a number of really silly signings that they make. Like, I'm not sure Cucurella is going to be that, though.
I think it's probably a very good signing.
Yeah.
It's just that it was very expensive, and it seemed like it was done purely out of spite to Man City.
Yeah. Like, did we see the Chelsea tweet as well, announcing the signing? Like, apologies, now I'm going to like completely butcher this, but Brighton obviously put up a tweet a few days previously being like, contrary to media reports, Sky Sports News and Fabrizio Romano, we have not reached an agreement with Chelsea Football Club for the sale of any player. And then 2 days later, after the signing was completed, Chelsea were like, club communication, contrary to media reports, we have reached an agreement with Brighton and Hove Albion for the signing of Marco Correa. Like, salty admin. Probably just Todd Bowley. He's got the password to the Twitter account.
He does. I would not be surprised if he has all those passwords. Okay, so that's that situation. You have completely. You must be very excited for all the despair that I feel after the opening day of the season. You must be very, very excited about Arsenal not doing what they did last year and ruining the start of the first 6 months of the year, not giving you any chance to get into this. Yes, these are my boys. They are your boys. Yeah,
it would just be it would just be great if this had all happened like 12 months earlier, because there is just a chance that Spurs and Chelsea are just going to be too good and better than Arsenal all season, even though Arsenal look like they could be very good all season. Like, Gabriel Jesus looked good on Friday night. It's like you sign a proven player from the Premier League and he looks like a proven player in the Premier League. Zinchenko looked good, and of course they're a shiny new thing, and that'll be great, and they've got their Premier League medals, so like there's no real surprise there. But William Saliba at centre back was possibly the most important performance to look out for on Friday night, and he excelled as well. And you talk about options in the heart of that Tottenham defence. Well, Arsenal are going to have that exact same thing as well, as soon as they've got their full choice full backs back with Tomiyasu coming back in at right back, who's actually going to be their centre back partnership. So Mikel Arteta also has good headaches to deal with. Fabio Vieira is going to come into that midfield, and things look very rosy all of a sudden for Arsenal. I still doubt that they'll finish any higher than fourth, but they're in the conversation for fourth, and I think they kind of need to get it for this project to look optimistic at the end of the season. Well, they also are playing really exciting football with one of the most talented group of kids playing football anywhere in the world at the moment. That's the best part, right? Yeah, no, it is, to be fair, and like it's Martinelli and Saka on Friday night as well looked really good, and obviously the goal scores essentially, I know Saka's was an own goal in the end, but yeah, that's the really exciting part about it all. And as I say, Saliba's been part of that coterie of young players that have been talked about at Arsenal for quite some time, and Saliba was filed under Aubameyang / Ozil just a few years ago, where I thought that Arteta didn't fancy him and Arteta was going to get it all wrong, and maybe he actually got this one right. And it seems that if he comes and plays a lot of games this season and is really good, he'll have been proven right in that regard. So that is definitely the most exciting part about it. These players that maybe not a whole pile of people would have known about until they actually came through the ranks at Arsenal or were signed by Arsenal at a very young age. That gives you hope that the recruitment and the processes in place behind the scenes are actually working. All right, Conor Cody going to Everton on loan, it looks like. So the Wolves fans can cry all they want, but he ain't going to be playing football for them this year. It looks like there is apparently a medical underway, depending on what you're reading this morning, with regards to that one. The other thing, of course, is that Chelsea signed Karni Chukwuemeka for 20 million from Villa. Villa's best player is no longer at Villa because they couldn't give him enough game time last season. It's like, really? Yeah, and like, what's he going to do at Chelsea this season? Like, maybe he's like ready to break through and play for a top 6 club now, but it felt like Aston Villa was almost the perfect level for him. And I wouldn't have even been surprised if it was like Chelsea buy him and then put him straight back on loan to Villa, because maybe that's what he needs at this point. But maybe not. Like, he does look absolutely class, so he could play a significant amount for Chelsea this season. We'll see. We will see. I wish him all the very best. Next. The last thing in our performance rankings this morning is Kilkenny All-Ireland Camogie champions. Once again, it looked like it was going to be relatively easy for them. They were 6 points up after 20 minutes, and then Cork just raced back into the game before half-time, and I think Cork were 2 points up with 3 minutes left to play. I think we all predicted Kilkenny in our quick picks on Friday as well, and I was like, this is how it goes. You know, we've put the hex on Kilkenny once again, but Sophie Dwyer comes up with this dramatic late goal, and it's not a goal to win the game because Cork come back into it, and then Kilkenny need to get a late free to actually win the game themselves. But that Sophie Dwyer goal was really important, and I think the drama kind of holds, given her her story arc this season, where she walks away from the intermediate panel at the start of the year, says, I'm good enough to play for the senior team. Brian Dowling was talking about this after the game yesterday, and he was like, you know, she wasn't in the starting 15, and she wasn't in the starting 15 even at the end of the season, and she was struggling to get game time, and it was only as the summer started to heat up that she started to get more significant game time off the bench and put in really big contributions as the season wore on. And then yesterday, coming off the bench, made the biggest contribution of all to score the goal that wins the game. And Kilkenny, maybe there was questions a few years ago about them being in tight games and where their mettle was. I think yesterday they've proven that actually when the game's in the melting pot, they're as good as any team as actually getting a win in those tight situations. Obviously devastated by the semi-final defeat last year, and they seem to have turned it on its head yesterday. I still think that it was very, very close. That we can draw these grand conclusions about Kilkenny mettle and all that, and still, last puck of the game, Aisling Thompson has the ball in her hand, and it goes wide. And when she goes for that effort, I'm thinking, right, this is a draw. We're going to another day here, but it just drifts wide, and sometimes that happens. And Kilkenny, they will write the story of yesterday because they are the victors, and it's been a hell of a 2020 or 2022 for them on so many levels, just given the personal tragedies that have struck the management team, and then obviously all the people who've retired, players travelling, a couple of players who did cruciates, two sisters, the Doyle sisters did cruciates within weeks of each other at the start of the season. So all this sort of stuff kind of built up over the course of the year, and it's been a hell of a journey that they've been on this season, and they just about got it done yesterday.
We're going to come back to this a little bit later on with Fiona Hickey, but before that, let's hear from Kilkenny's Laura Murphy here talking with Aisling O'Reilly in Croker yesterday after they won the All-Ireland.
Laura, congratulations. I'm not going to keep you long. As I said, I'll let you get back to the dressing room. It's one of the best bits after winning All-Ireland, I'm sure, to get in there, see all the girls. It must be great stuff at the minute.
Yeah, absolutely. We said at half time we're either going to be coming in here heads down looking at our boots, or the Duffy will be in the middle of the dressing room, and just such an unbelievable feeling to be going back into that dressing room now, knowing that the girls will all be jumping around the place, and just delighted.
At half time you were level, you had won 6 points clear. At one stage Cork hadn't scored. You must have thought then going in at half time that they sort of got a bit of momentum, and you didn't want to be going in level after having a 6 point lead.
No, absolutely not. But look, I knew myself, as did all the girls, 6 points up, we knew Cork were going to have a purple patch, and oh my God, they did. They came back level going in at half time, and we knew that the second half was just going to be a dogfight, and it was that they threw everything at us, and it took everything in us to come out the right side of that, including a little bit of luck at the end.
Absolutely. What was it like out on the pitch? It looked like it was a really physical game, and the sun was beaming down as well to add to matters.
Yeah, look, it was just took an incredible amount of hard work and fitness. Oh my God, the running, Cork's game, they're so quick and they're constantly looking for the ball up and down the pitch. It's end line to end line stuff, and with the weather today, it was definitely a tough one.
And as you said, a little bit of luck. Sophie Dwyer, she managed to pull on the ball, it rebounded back out. She did exactly the right thing, pulled on it hard, and went in the back of the net. What were you thinking then?
I was just absolutely delighted, and just need to push on now for the last couple of minutes, but it's credit to Sophie. She's been immense. She's come into a little bit of form towards the end of the year, and we say it all the time, it's not just the 15 players, it's the 5 players that come on, it's the other 10 girls that are on the panel as well, pushing all the time, and we needed those girls coming in off the bench today, because it wouldn't have happened otherwise.
You've lost a lot of girls this year through retirements, travelling, injuries, all that sort of thing. A lot of people maybe at the start of the year would have wrote Kilkenny off that, there's too many girls gone, they're not going to be able to do it this year, and here you are.
Yeah, definitely, and look, I suppose that makes it a little bit sweeter, and when a door closes for one, it opens for another, and you've seen Tiffany today, 19 years of age, up the pitch, you know, corner back, over the bar. You know, I think that's definitely her first point in championship this year, and you know, what a way to get it. And as I said, you know, Tiffany is one of those players. She took our opportunity this year and had an unbelievable season.
And the management, what have you made of them this year?
I just will never come across a management team like the lads. They're unbelievable. The work they put in behind the scenes is, you know, they're credit to themselves, and you know, they're you know, training is different every day you go. The work that's put in, they're unbelievable.
And you'll enjoy the celebrations now you get back to Kilkenny tonight?
Yeah, there'll be no fear that we'll be well able to enjoy this one. Thanks very much.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
The best rugby insight and analysis.
When you watch a guy, Gerrard, standing on the sideline counting players with his fingers, you know this is bullshit.
OTB Sports Rugby.
We talk about having to give Carberry and these players more time, but even if we give them more time, they're not going to hit the level that Johnny is hitting at and what he brings out of other players.
Subscribe to the rugby stream on the OTB Sports app now.
Things that put people off on a first date. Showing up late and getting your name wrong? Always a great start. Looking at their phone more than you? Hello? Someone who only talks about themselves. Oh, really? God, aren't you great? Look, no one said dating is perfect, but at GoDating.ie, we promise we'll always try and find your perfect match. Because somewhere out there, there's someone for you. And GoDating.ie will help you find them. Yes, even you, socks and sandals guy. Go on, go for it with GoDating.ie.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, 16 minutes past 8. Time to look at the opening day defeat at Manchester United. I'm delighted to say Daniel Harris is with us to revisit some familiar storylines. Daniel, good morning to you. How are you?
Good, thanks. Hi, everyone. How are you?
The new season is the same as the old season, it turns out, with the same plot lines.
Goodness me.
Same characters.
I mean, it's in some ways, I guess, this was more dispiriting than anything that happened last season, especially in the second half of the season, because ultimately that was a temporary state of affairs. So you hope that the players turn it off because they know the manager's not going to be there. There'll be another one along shortly. But actually, so then for the new manager to turn up and for it to be every bit as unremittingly awful is extremely problematic.
My favourite new subgenre of Twitter are the Ranić truthers who are like, well, you were pouring scorn on him last year when he was telling you the truth. You better sing his name now. He was a genius. It's like, I'm not sure.
I think it's not about that Ranić was a genius. He did say he identified a lot of obvious problems. He didn't have either the scope or the chops to change them. But I think he knew how dreadful it was, and he said so. The problem is that the stuff he recommended, and I'm sure the stuff that Erik ten Hag has recommended, the board haven't done. And the answer to everything is not by spending loads of money on players. But if you look at what's going on above United, that is a lot of the answers. Liverpool and Man City both needed strikers, so they went and bought the best strikers available. United wanted Darwin Núñez, but weren't allowed to pursue the interest because Ten Hag wanted Frankie de Jong more, and the money that they would have spent on Núñez was committed to de Jong, when actually, of course, they need both of those players. Then if you look at Arsenal and Tottenham, Arsenal have spent more money than any club in the world over the last year, and Tottenham also. Antonio Conte made it basically a resignation issue, didn't he, really, where he more or less forced Daniel Levy to back him, because if he didn't, he'd have left. And then at that point, if you've got a manager as good as Antonio Conte and he leaves, following other managers leaving, it makes the job toxic. And I think that is where United are right now, where it feels like Erik ten Hag is sort of the last vestige of the club pretending that it's a football club and more than just a trust fund. Because if this one fails, if they go and get a manager who looks like he's on the way up rather than on the way down, and previously Mourinho and Van Gaal, the two big names that United had post-Fergie, were both on the way down, but you go and get a man who has modern coaching ideas and believes in all the right stuff and all the buzzwords, has done it at Ajax, and then United fail him, then at that point, it makes the job toxic. Because what was meant to happen this summer, you hear all the phrases, cultural reboot, rebuilding the team, all this kind of thing. And what have they done? They've signed a young left-back as either backup for Shaw or to eventually take over from Shaw, a centre-back, and Christian Eriksen for free. The two main things that this team needed were a midfield player, a holding midfield player, or whatever you want to call it, and a striker. And neither of those things have happened. And more than that, yesterday they're trying to sign Marko Arnautovic, which is just such mind-bogglingly awful behaviour that is really quite hard to fathom, because we've done this before, and that's even before we look at all the dreadful stuff Arnautovic has done that has nothing to do with his actual ability to play football, which also isn't good enough.
To talk about the team itself and the performance, are there any signs of what he's trying to do? Because, this is the first game, it's the first 90 minutes, and I get that it's very dispiriting because the same things that happened last year. There is a possibility his coaching will improve the players who are already there. It's hard to find any evidence to back up that from yesterday's performance, but maybe after 5-10 games, some of those players start to play better. You would hope. Yeah,
I agree. I agree that it is absolutely his job to make better the players that he has. That is absolutely his job. I thought that he got the team wrong yesterday. Christian Eriksen was playing as a false nine. Here's a player you need with the play in front of him, not with the play behind him. And more than that, he's one of your most intelligent passers. And one of the things United struggled to do was move the ball through midfield. And also, United didn't have anyone to hit when they tried to get the ball forward. There was no one to play off. I think that to some extent, Ten Hag nailed it and the problem with this team. Afterwards, he said that they started well, and that's true. I think if Bruno scores a really easy chance that he had, we're probably talking about a different game, because United were playing quite well at that point. But the second that things went against them, they collapsed and they regressed into all their old bad habits. And there's a softness, there's a weakness about this team. And it's been like that for quite some time. And it's hard to see how you can change that without changing a few more of the players, because these players have form for that. And then suddenly becoming mentally tough in their mid-20s just seems quite unlikely, because people don't tend to change like that. And although you would expect Ten Hag to be able to improve the players over time, to improve them individually and to improve the way they interact with each other on the pitch, he's not a miracle worker. He's not going to turn Fred into Lothar Matthäus. That's not going to happen. You might be able to get a bit more out of Fred than others do, but the bottom line is that what you have in the United squad, I think, is you have quite a few players who might be good enough as first reserves, or who, if you stuck them in a fully functioning team, you get a good shift out of. But you can't get a good team out of too many of those players, and United have way too many of those players.
Do you think that there is a possibility that Erik ten Hag now turns to those above him at the football club and says, look, this is what we are now dealing with? I mean, Avram Glazer was there yesterday to see it in all its glory. Do you think that there is that there might actually be hope at the end of this transfer window because of what happened yesterday?
I mean, possibly. It just depends, because you don't know what the Glazers' plan for United is. Previously, the plan hasn't really been to challenge for league titles. It's to try and get into the top four, spending as little money as possible, and then hope that something miraculous happens. But yeah, sitting there yesterday, perhaps. But I mean, these are the conversations that I'm sure have been happening for the last few weeks. I don't imagine Ten Hag has been sitting there saying, I don't need a new striker. I'm not desperate for a new striker. Now, Anthony Martial getting injured made that much more apparent. And Cristiano Ronaldo not being available made that much more apparent. But I'd be surprised if these weren't conversations that were being had, because what would have happened is someone would have sold Ten Hag a vision for the club. It might not have been the Glazers, it might have been John Murtough, it might have been Darren Fletcher, it might have been all of them. And I can't imagine that what they told him was going to be the case is now the case. I don't believe for a second that they said, we will get you a deputy left back, Sandro Martinez and Christian Eriksen for free. You can't reboot a club with that. Those players might all be good players. I mean, Tyrell Malacia looks a really good player. I can totally see why they signed him based on what I've seen from him so far. Christian Eriksen, we know, is a good player. Sandro Martinez had a dreadful first half yesterday, got a bit better, but you have to trust the manager at some point that he knows what he's bought there. But those three things are not going to turn a club that finished sixth and actually was a bit lucky to finish sixth into a club that's pushing the teams that finished above that have gone and invested again. It's just not going to happen. And I don't believe that Ten Hag waited until yesterday to say those things. I hope that what happened yesterday will focus the Glazers' minds on their need to get money out, because really that's the only thing that motivates them. They don't care about football. They don't care about United. It's just how it affects their bottom line. So I hope that what they saw yesterday made them think that, but it may well not have done.
Like, I accepted this question is like a complete week one overreaction, but you mentioned Antonio Conte and his resignation issue last year. Where does Manchester United need to go to from here for this to become a resignation issue for Erik ten Hag, if what you're saying there, which is probably the truth, that he expected something different to happen over the course of the last 2 months?
I think that he will know what's going on inside the club, but he may, I don't think he will make it a resignation issue, but if he did, that would give the board a question to answer, because at that point, if you get that manager and then he does one in the first 3 weeks of the season because you lied to him about what you were going to do, that doesn't look good, and finding your next manager and therefore getting your next dividends are problematic.
Good content though, Daniel. It will be good content.
That's what United are. They're a content provider. I said they weren't a football club anymore. They're a trust fund. But yeah, they're also a content provider. A sitcom, farce, all these many different things. There are many faces of Manchester United, and football club is not really one of them anymore. But we do need some perspective that Lisandro Martinez will play better than that. Anthony Martial or Cristiano Ronaldo will play up front, and neither of them is the right man to play up front. But just having them up front will make it better. We'll let Christian Eriksen play deeper, and it will then get better. Presumably, they're not done buying players. There is something just extremely awful about spending cash money on Marko Arnautovic. I hope that doesn't happen, because partly just because of who Marko Arnautovic is, that would be the main thing, but also who is signing 32-year-old centre forwards who weren't any good to begin with to try and become a good football team? No one. And I know Ten Hag isn't a fool, and he knows the player and thinks that he'll be able to do something for him. But at the same time, it's just a ridiculous compromise. And part of me hopes that Ten Hag is playing some other game here where he's allowing it to be known that United want to sign Marko Arnautovic, so that there'll be an almighty fuss, so that they then won't do that and will then go and buy a better player. Because I think we all know that they're trying to sign Benjamin Šeško, and I've no idea whether he's any good or not. I do know that if you think that he is going to be a brilliant player, then 55 million quid is a bargain. Any transfer that works is a bargain, basically. They're worth whatever you're lucky enough to pay for that player.
Isn't that the point about the Frankie de Jong thing, which has gone on so long at this stage? You'd have to assume, at some level, Manchester United believe that what he's saying about not wanting to go there isn't true, and that actually he's happy to go there, because otherwise they would have surely called off this.
100%. There's no way that Ten Hag hasn't spoken to Frankie de Jong. They know each other. They have each other's phone number. Now, Frankie de Jong, when he told Ten Hag that he was prepared to come, he might not have known that he had an option of going to Chelsea, for example, because you could just imagine Frankie de Jong watching that game yesterday thinking, and even if he had decided that he was prepared to come, the fact that Chelsea are now in for him may well have made him think, well, actually, I'm not just missing the Champions League this season, I could well be missing the Champions League next season as well. Now, he may also be thinking, hang on a sec, if I can go to Manchester United and be the main man and help them become good again, that might be quite an ego-tickling activity. That might be something that a professional athlete thinks is a challenge that they want to embrace. Like, that's not beyond the realms of possibility. But the idea of Frankie de Jong turning up to that seemed quite a fanciful one. But again, you don't know, because I'm trying not to be totally reactive here and saying, well, everything's dreadful just because there was that one dreadful performance against a really excellent team who came to United, who came with a plan and executed that plan really well. So I'm trying not to be reactive. So perhaps Frankie de Jong would also not be reactive. But if he were to be watching that game or to hear about that result and think, nah, I'm not doing that, you would entirely understand why that would be the case.
The only thing, your point about the 55 million being a bargain if the transfer is correct, right? It feels like there's just a gap of whatever 10, 17, whatever the outstanding wages are that could have solved the Frankie de Jong situation 2 months ago. that Manchester United wanted the player, they identified the player, the price was the price, and there's this outstanding issue of the wages which seems to be pissing everybody off. And he's like, Barcelona are going to have to sort this out, and Barcelona are like too busy spending somebody else's money to notice that they could also
spending
solve it.
Frankie de Jong's money even.
Well, yeah, exactly, and venture capital firms and their fans for the next 15 years. A well-run, a paragon of financial security. But like, money would solve that problem from Manchester United's perspective. They would have had Frankie de Jong 2 months ago. He would have played in the pre-season. He would be in the team, and we'd be like looking forward, going, okay. I still, the waste of the money that they've spent over the years, and yet they're so incapable of spending the right money at the right time sometimes. It just doesn't make any sense.
The De Jong one is slightly more complex because we know that that's quite an intricate deal. So I would be less inclined to give them grief for the De Jong thing, although obviously looking from the outside, you do kind of think there's surely a financial answer here. I don't know that that's true. Whereas with Šeško, we absolutely know that is true. You've been told what the price is. You either pay the money or you don't. Do we think that Liverpool really wanted to pay as much as they paid for Nunez? I think probably they didn't. But they paid it because they decided that he was the player they wanted, and they're a football club. And football clubs need football players, and good football players are better than bad football players. So they committed the money and they spent it, even though it seemed like a lot of money. In the way it seemed, 70 million quid seemed like a lot of money for Alisson, seemed like a lot of money for Virgil van Dijk. And it seemed like a lot of money for those players because it was. But as I said, if you get a player who's good, then they're worth whatever money you're lucky enough to spend on them. We saw it with Ajax as well this summer. So United wanted to buy some players from Ajax, but by the time they finally got around to doing it, Ajax had lost Gravenberch to Bayern Munich, they lost Mazraoui to Bayern Munich, and then they sold Sebastian Haller to Dortmund. At that point, suddenly Ajax don't need to sell any players that summer. So United, who thought they were being smart negotiating, end up having to overpay for Martinez because his price went up because suddenly Ajax didn't need the money anymore, and they didn't get Timber and they didn't get Antony. Now, you can talk about the fact that Ten Hag, well, surely he can find players who didn't play for Ajax, play in the Dutch league, or have played against Ajax. But actually, and I understand that, I would ordinarily be quite suspicious of a manager who did that. But those players might well be the best players that United can get because they're not coming for United, they're coming for Ten Hag. And they trust the manager, so that's quite a big thing when signing for a new club. But their dallying, I think, felt like it cost them with Ajax because of that. Ajax got their business done. They could have got Antony. If they had got in for Antony and offered a sum that Ajax would accept before they sold Haller to Dortmund, then it would have been Dortmund that had to overpay rather than the other way around. But United dithered, and that's what happened. And so, though I don't know that it's the case with De Jong because that seems like a more complex deal, we absolutely know that happened with Ajax, and we can absolutely see it happening with Šeško now. If United want him, they go and say, here's £55 million, or whatever or 55 million euros, can't remember which, whatever the number is, then however much you feel some level of shame that you're paying all this money for someone who's untried at the top level, you have to trust your people who are responsible for talent identification. You have to trust the manager. And what are you saying ultimately? If you give 35 million quid for someone and you think that he's good enough to be your centre forward for the next 5 years, let's say, good enough to play in that position, then if you get that for 55 million euros, let's say, that too is a bargain.
Yeah.
Particularly when that is a player that you need. And the fact is everyone's seeing United coming. They know that United are desperate for players. They now know as well that Anthony Martial is injured. And they now know that United didn't have anyone to play centre forward yesterday and lost at home to Brighton. And the longer you wait, the more
worse it gets.
If you're Salzburg, the more you're like,
70 million.
I said 55. Well, look at that. Do you want him or don't you? And these things rarely get better. And the whole manner in which United have been run, I mean, what have they been doing all summer? That Christian Eriksen was a free transfer.
They've been having pints in the pub with fans.
There's not even with Christian Eriksen. There's not even another club to negotiate with. You just got to you just got to pay someone wages, and so that's not a difficult deal to do. Martinez again, wasn't really a difficult deal to do. United wanted him. He wanted to come to United. Personal terms were clearly not an issue. It was just a matter of getting the fee right with Ajax. That took much longer than it needed to, such that you end up with Martinez, who has to play yesterday. He's barely played with United. He's barely had a pre-season with United, which again was a deal that could have been done weeks ago so that he can move to Manchester, get settled and have his proper pre-season. And Manasseh was a deal that they actually did well. It was a rare one where they waited for another club to find out what the price was, so then came in and paid a little bit more rather than wait for the United tax to be added to it, and did the deal really quickly. That was excellent. And you thought, oh, maybe some lessons have been learned. But the other two deals, I mean, the Eriksson deal had probably some medical complications where he had to kind of satisfy various things, so it took a bit longer than it might have done otherwise. But the Martinez deal was a mess. I mean, what did they get out of those negotiations? They were told what the price was. They took weeks trying to get that deal done. How much less did they get the player for than they would have done otherwise? We don't know, perhaps nothing.
Yeah.
And even if it was a few million quid, was it worth it to not have the player available when you needed them? And this has been a problem all the way through with the Glazers. If I remember it with Berbatov. When Berbatov signed in the summer of 2008, United spent the whole summer arguing with him, ended up having to kidnap him from City on deadline day. When Daniel Levy had told them what the price was weeks ago, they could have had the player, he could have moved to Manchester, he could have had pre-season where his new teammates learned how to play around him. And I always felt like that actually made a difference to the entirety of Berbatov's time at United, that he never had that time to properly settle into a team that had a pattern of playing, knew what it was doing. And he never had that. And he never quite did the things that you hoped he was going to do. And part of that was just the way that he wanted to play, was probably the wrong player at the wrong time.
Yeah.
But also, he just never had that time to settle in because United were spending so long haggling over a few million that they had to spend anyway. Same with Harry Maguire. Also happened with Harry Maguire. All summer, negotiating with Leicester, trying to get the price cheaper when they'd been told what it was. But they'd also made it clear that Harry Maguire was the only player that the manager wanted, so there was no way that Leicester were going to back down. They didn't. United paid what he got, what they've been told the price was, but 6 weeks later, and again, you have a player who's in a rush to join and not settled because that way of going about business is not the way that you're able to go about running your business if you're Manchester United.
It's Brentford away at 5:30 this Saturday, which I dare say is going to be one of the highlights of the weekend for people watching from a neutral perspective. I did want to get your take, though, on one of the other stories from yesterday as well, Daniel, which was the arrival of the human laser beam that is Erling Haaland to the Premier League. He looks amazing, doesn't he?
Yeah, the world's first lab-designed goal monster. I mean, we know he's a brilliant player, and there's no way it was ever going to take very long for him to assert himself in that way, because that's what talent does. And the thing with City yesterday, the thing that was ominous is they didn't even play particularly well. West Ham were poor, so we do need to point that out. And the heat was probably quite helpful for City because City could just keep the ball. No one keeps the ball better than City. No team keeps the ball better than Pep Guardiola teams. And West Ham had to run around trying to get hold of it on the first day of the season when they're not properly match fit. So that obviously played into City's hands, and City just, as soon as, I think like the first goal was a brilliant goal because although it was obviously a penalty in the end, the pass from Gundogan and the run from Haaland had to take place in a very small amount of space, the space that was in behind the West Ham defence. The ball was perfect, the run was perfect, and the drawing of the foul was perfect. The second goal was also quite telling because at that point there was more space in behind, because what's happened is now City are in front. West Ham have actually got to try and win the game, they've got to try and get a goal. And then as soon as they push up, you've got that space in behind for Haaland to attack. And the pass from De Bruyne was brilliant, and the finish was as you expect it to be. And we're going to see a lot of that. And the thing is if you look at the number of points it's taken to win the Premier League in the last 6 seasons, 5 of those seasons are in the top 6 of points that have ever been scored in the Premier League era. And I think that Guardiola is cognizant of that because he knows that the players that win you points, and every drop point means so much now because of the points you've got to get to win the league, to the extent where Liverpool dropping points to Fulham kind of felt like a big result in the first week of the season, which is a ridiculous thing to say. But one of the reasons why Liverpool and City have bought strikers is because centre forwards are players who win you points when you wouldn't otherwise get them. And for City now to have that, people have talked a lot about the way that City play, where they've got those goals where the ball's cut back, and now they've got Haaland there to finish them off. You've got goals at the front post as well. I'm sure he's going to score a ridiculous number of goals at the front post. And also, they've now opened up that possibility for through balls, which they didn't have last season because they didn't have a centre forward. And even when they had Aguero, Aguero didn't really score that many one-on-ones because he wasn't that kind of play. Aguero's more of a penalty box player. But when you've got someone like Haaland who knows how to time a run and has ridiculous pace, and I think what I liked about the way he scored the second goal was the way he got his stride sorted out. So he lengthened his stride, I think, when he wanted to get him behind, to get away from the defender, and then the speed with which he shortened his stride to get his feet sorted for a one-touch finish, because he didn't actually control the ball. He shortened his stride really cleverly to get around the right-hand side of the ball so that he could stick it away. That wasn't really an Aguero goal. The Aguero goal is the ball drops him in the box and he gets away a shot before the goalkeeper set himself, because he had this way of shooting where he's sort of bringing his right foot around almost from behind his arse and shooting before the goalkeeper gets set. Haaland has those kinds of finishes, but he has something a little bit more because he's just a much bigger, much faster, much stronger athlete.
Yeah.
And adding that to the best technical team in the league, it is very, very difficult to see how City don't win the league this season. They still might not win the Champions League because they've still got a defence that could easily cost them when they play against other teams with brilliant attackers. But in terms of the week-to-week of just remorselessly accumulating points, it is almost impossible to see how someone else is going to stop them, because if you think about it, in almost every game they're going to have 70% possession. So if you look at that from the perspective of the other team, who are going to have maximum, let's say, 35% possession, half of that time the ball's going to be dead, half of that time the ball's going to be in their own half. So how long? They're going to have, 10%, 15% possession with the ball anywhere near the City goal.
Yeah.
And in that time, they've probably got to score twice to get a point.
An average of 2 shots maybe per game that they'll be suffering.
So, exactly. So you've basically got to be perfect, almost perfect, to get anything from City, and that is very hard to obtain.
One last thing, Steven Gerrard started the season pretty badly. The Villa fans are on the verge of being en fuego. Not quite en fuego yet, but
talking about himself here.
Very close to it. How long do you think Steven Gerrard's going to last as the Villa manager?
I'm not sure. Again, you don't want to set too much store in what you see in the first week. Steven Gerrard did a great job at Rangers, but he got lucky in that he was sort of in that interregnum between Rodgers and Postecoglou. So he got in and got out very quickly. He got a league title, went against Neil Lennon, stopped the 10 in a row, and got out. So, and I was surprised that he did a good job at Rangers, because he wasn't someone who, the way that he played or the way that he spoke about the game, was someone I expected to be a good coach, in that he was a player who played on instinct. He was a Royal Rovers player who would just do brilliant stuff at crucial moments and override everything that happened in the football game to that point with force of talent and competitive charisma, whatever you want to call it. But he didn't control the game. He wasn't an incisive, thoughtful passer particularly. And then talking about football, he didn't do that either. And if you look at Rangers now, they're better than they were under him, because Giovanni Van Bronckhorst seems like a better coach. So perhaps I'd be surprised, I guess, still if he turns out to be a really good coach for all those reasons. But he does have good players at Villa. And so if he can get them sorted, I wouldn't set too much store by an opening day defeat. But if in a month they're still struggling, then I'm absolutely certain that he will be struggling, because he's been given a decent amount of money and he's got good players.
Yeah, that's the thing. Daniel, good stuff. Great to have you back. Thanks a million.
Nice
Cheers.
to see you again, everyone. Have a good day.
That's Daniel Harris giving us some thoughts on the weekend's Premier League stuff. If you've got views, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. You can leave a comment on the YouTube stream. Of course, a reminder for you all this morning that Braeburn Coffee is the official coffee partner of OTB. Every week we're giving one lucky viewer a €100 voucher to spend on some Braeburn Coffee goodness at an Apple Green store near you. To enter, just check out @OffTheBall on Twitter. Like and retweet our Braeburn competition post and you'll be in the draw. Braeburn Coffee is Apple Green's new premium coffee brand that offers customers the best coffee experience on the road, and it's available now at 30 locations nationwide. It is 8:43 this morning. Very quickly, I'm going to run you through some of the newspapers. I mean, as you would expect, the English papers all have Erling Haaland and Ten Hag. Hell of a job to fix United, says Ten Hag. And it's Haaland. Is he silencing? Is he doing silence? That's what the back page headline in the London Times says. And they're also saying Timo Werner's gone back to Germany, to Leipzig.
Misunderstood Timo. The
Irish papers, just on the verge of a breakout on. Kilkenny's year of sweat and tears yields them the title once again. It's a 1-point win for Kilkenny in the Camogie final. We're going to talk about that in about 5 minutes' time. And the line of the day for me comes from Jonathan Wilson at Old Trafford. Even Avram Glazer, enthused by the prospect of a new start, turned up, sitting in the director's box with the fixed stare and vacant smile characteristic of extremely wealthy men pretending to understand the events being played out in front of them.
It is interesting, you know, it's like the thought process that goes into Avram Glazer's decision to come. He obviously picks a date in the calendar that will be a joyous one, a guaranteed win at home, first game, new manager bounce.
Who are even Brighton?
Yeah.
What are they? What is that?
The Brighton Gulls are in town. And our Red Devils are going to clip their wings. And I just saw him kind of like the camera panned him as he walked down the tunnel in the front sandwich area of the stadium. A very dejected man. Got to feel sorry for him.
I do. I feel intense sympathy for Avram and all the Glazers this morning. It's a terrible little situation they found themselves in, making billions out of owning a football club. Carl Malani, good morning to you. How are you?
Hi lads, how's it going?
What's the crack?
Not much now. It's good to have the Premier League back. GA's over. Intercounty GA at least.
But the All-Ireland have got a look in this morning with the Manchester United situation. If the men's All-Ireland was...
There you go.
Split
Split season works.
Yeah.
But it is over quite quickly. But now the club season should take over now. But the Premier League's back, obviously, and it's just all so quick, isn't it? Like, I mean, it's all coming together, and then you're going to have rugby back, and then it's into the World Cup, and then you're into the GA again next January. So it's all very quick, but we won't complain.
Like, obviously, there are a couple of things that will keep us tipping along over the next few months, and one of them yesterday was, we'll probably play the audio later on, is the refs getting mic'd up in TG Carr. It's there's actually some innovation that can be done with the club game that can actually increase how we view this thing, or increase our relationship with this thing. And I'm not sure what many people have been talking about the Kerry hurling final yesterday, except for people obviously from the county, and turns out a lot of people are talking about it because of really good work from TG Carr.
We have the audio now if we're good to go with it. Yeah. So who are the two teams here?
So we got Causeway and Ballyduff, and Causeway got the win yesterday in the end, upsetting the odds, I think, to get over the line in this one. And the referee, whose name just escapes me right now,
we'll look it up.
It was the first John O'Halloran was the referee. Apologies, John from Limerick. He was
he knows the players pretty well.
He does, actually, it seemed, and maybe this is like the case for all referees, and we just don't know it. And I don't know what I expected. But
we're going to play this audio.
Yeah.
Tell us what's happened.
What is after happening in the clip we're about to play? I'm actually not quite sure.
Okay, so what's happened is...
a free's been given against a fella, and it's a yellow card offence.
Exactly.
Sorry, it's that clip.
The ball's gone in, yeah. So let's have a listen.
The Tammy Casey.
Okay. The initial foul was over here. Second one's in here. It's the yellow card offence over here. Just swiping carelessly, okay?
Smashing. Court to be. Rattig and I told I was talk court to Ella.
Oh, you're late with the challenge. Stop. Please stop talking. Listen to me. Please listen to me. You're just careless with the challenge. You're late, that's all. It is a card, I'm afraid.
It's not.
Stop, come on.
Give me the peel again.
No.
Give me the meal again.
Pádraig, come on.
I swear to God.
Pádraig, I'm here in front of it. I'm only 3 yards away from it.
Anna Hamul.
Anna Hamul, indeed. It's not. I swear to God, it's not. You can hear the players coming back to them.
It's not.
It feels a little bit like rugby, the tone of the referee. Like, I don't know what I expected from like being 100 metres away and seeing these refs talk to the players. I just thought it was like aggression on both sides. But actually, it seems that the refs are quite courteous, and obviously the players trying their best to put a case up for themselves.
There was referees mic'd up before, and then there was controversy afterwards because the players were unaware of it.
Kerry Dublin 2015 All-Ireland final.
Yeah. And there was a minor controversy afterwards. It wasn't that big a deal.
The players weren't aware of it that time, were they not?
No, they weren't told in advance. But were they told yesterday in advance? Is that why they were being polite? Was it,
I wonder when
would it have been totally different?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
When the captains go in for the throw, and they usually come back with some sort of a message from the referee. I wonder, was like, this guy's wearing a wire.
Yeah.
Do they ever actually tell anything? Go back there now, lads, and it's like, will me hold. I'm going to take everybody out of the moment they're in to go, by the way, lads, the referee has said whatever.
Fair, clean game.
Yeah, exactly. I don't.
But it's a great innovation, yeah, and obviously they're probably on their best behaviour yesterday if they were aware. But it is a very interesting dynamic.
Doesn't it immediately help the behaviour to get good? doesn't it immediately transform the bit where, and doesn't it then filter down into the club game where it's like people start being more respectful? Like, it's a fairly obvious, straightforward thing.
Yeah, I like your holistic point on it, but my whole takeaway is this is just very good entertainment, and I will be watching more games if there is more insight like this. But yes, of course, that's good for the game too.
Yeah, great.
Respect is also good.
Stereotypical, brilliant innovation from TG Garr when it comes to their coverage. What else is going on, Carl?
Well, let's just recap yesterday's Camogie action. A point of free from Denise Gold 2 minutes into added time helped Kilkenny win the All-Ireland Senior Final at Croke Park. They beat Cork by 113 to 112 with that late free Sophie O'Dwyer netting a late goal as well for Kilkenny. In the other finals, Galway would beat Cork to win the intermediate crown by 13 points to 11, while Antrim overcame Armagh by 5-5 to 14 points in the Premier Junior decider. In football, Manchester United manager Eric Ten Hag insists their 2-1 Premier League defeat to Brighton was unnecessary. A first half double from Pascal Gross was enough to secure the visitors' victory at Old Trafford. Elsewhere, Erling Haaland scored twice for Manchester City, 2-0 winners over West Ham, and Brendan Rodgers' Leicester played out a 2-2 draw with Brentford. Sligo Rovers bounced back from their European disappointment midweek to beat Bohemians. That was in the SSE Airtricity League Premier Division last night. John Russell's side 2-1 winners at the Showgrounds, Max Mattis scoring twice, having come off the bench. One game tonight in the Championship Cross Channel. West Brom take on Watford from 8. In golf this weekend, Leona Maguire secured her best ever finish at a major championship yesterday. She posted a 7-under total to finish in a tie for 4th at Muirfield after a 5-under par 66 on Sunday. That left her 3 shots adrift of the eventual winner, Ashley Buhai. The South African beat Inji Chun in a playoff to take the title, while Porrick Harrington narrowly missed out on a playoff place at the Shaw Charity Classic on the Champions Tour. He finished on 8 under par, 1 shot behind Jerry Kelly and John Houston. Kelly won the playoff with a birdie at the first playoff hole. At the Commonwealth Games, Belfast siblings Michaela and Aidan Walsh both won gold medals yesterday. Michaela overcame the challenge of her Nigerian opponent to win the women's featherweight final in Birmingham, while Aidan had earlier clinched gold in the men's 71kg division after winning his final against an opponent from Mozambique. 3 other Northern Irish boxers, Amy Broadhurst, Dylan Eagleson and Jude Gallagher, also took gold yesterday. So a good day for Northern Ireland at the Commonwealth Games. And there's racing this evening at Ballinrobe in County Mayo, where the first of 7 goes to post at 5:25.
All right, good stuff. Thanks very much for that, Carl. It's 8:51 this morning. If you want to get involved in the conversation we're having, then you can tweet us at Off The Ball. You can always leave a comment on our YouTube stream, or of course you can text us. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Shifty Lad says, good morning everyone. Did anyone think the atmosphere at the South African New Zealand game was the best ever at a rugby game? Also, does the hack weigh the players down on the All Black side because they've started shite the last few games?
Yeah, going from an unfair advantage to an unfair disadvantage, I presume whether or not it's good or bad probably evens itself out for the New Zealand team over the course of a few years, is it?
It'd be interesting to see like the most outrageous theatrical hackas and the tears leading to victories, or the other way around.
Yeah, it did seem that the haka was just as ferocious between the first test and the second test against Ireland. And the performance maybe
the third test they were in tears, and then we started the 3 tests really well.
Yeah, maybe there's a bit of that. Although, what was it, the 2019 World Cup, the Fields of Athenry was ringing around as the haka was going on, and maybe that made the New Zealanders angry that day. Just don't sing during the haka, maybe.
Yeah, I think, or just be better at them at rugby.
That can sometimes help in the grand scheme of things if you're trying to win a rugby match, for sure.
Okay. All right. If you want to get in touch, as I said, you can text us here 0879 180 180. That's the WhatsApp number. At 8:53, though, let's turn our attention to yesterday's Camogie final. Fiona Hickey joins us. Fiona, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
Hi, how are you getting on, lads? You well?
Incredible drama at the end. Was the result a fair one, or would actually a draw, if the last chance had gone over, would that have been kind of what the doctor ordered? What did you think?
Yeah, I probably think the Cork really probably deserved the draw in the end. You wouldn't have thought it after 15 minutes or so, or even before the game. I would have thought that Kilkenny, they've been the most consistent team all year, and I thought that they'd let cut loose in this final, but Cork stopped that happening. They didn't get going for a while, but and it was just, I suppose Cork could come out with the draw. Aisling Thompson, you've seen her hit those points, day in, day out, but it was such a pressure shot. So I suppose a draw, could have been the fair result on the day. But Kilkenny, to be fair, have been on on the losing side from, little, points that Cork have scored near the end of games as well. So it was good for them to come out on the right side of it for once.
Is that something you've seen change with Kilkenny over the last few years? The fact that they can grind out these big games and the big moments?
Yeah, I suppose, you think back to 2020 and I suppose Denise Gall was a bit of a hero again yesterday, but in 2020 when she'd stand up to take that penalty, in the dying minutes, she stuck it. And I suppose the consistency of management and the consistency of players, now they've lost a few from last year obviously, but they still have their great mix of experience and I suppose younger players, but the driving force there, Denise Gall, Miriam Walsh, Claire Phelan, they're all still there. And I do think that Brian Dowling has just done great work with them, I suppose, mentally to be able to grind out these wins now. So it's it's great for them.
What happened in that first half after the comeback from Cork and maybe a little bit of a retreat from Kilkenny? Was there a tactical shift or what caught your eye in those few minutes?
Yeah, it was such an interesting period. I would actually say that Kilkenny probably didn't capitalise enough on, I suppose, Cork's slow start. They had the same slow start against Waterford, so I suppose Kilkenny could have been prepared for it and could have, hit the jugular a few times. I think they probably didn't capitalise enough on the slow start from Cork. And I suppose once Cork settled into it, I really thought that Fiona Neville had a great game there at centre forward yesterday. And Katrina Mackey was actually free inside. She easily could have hand passed off that ball for Katrina to kind of stick it in the back of the net. But Fiona said, I'm doing this myself. Like, she's been a super asset to Cork this year, especially with Orla Cronin missing. So, I suppose Cork just settled into it and they picked off their scores one by one. It was a slow comeback, but to go in a draw at half time after going down 6 points and Kilkenny did were lucky to be going in at a draw at half time. So I suppose Cork just settled into it. It's been a slow start. I saw Paddy Murray talking about it on the Sunday game last night. They've had 2 slow starts and he reckons I don't know, that things aren't set up as they should be, I suppose, maybe, I don't know.
Yes, it is interesting because you mentioned the Waterford game and it's 2 games in a row now where they've been in a slow start, and I guess it probably cost them in the end then yesterday, all things considered. Like, is it something to do with their style of play, like the hard running through the middle? Does that just take maybe a quarter of a game just to get fully up to speed, or is that just reading into it a little bit too much?
I don't know, maybe. I suppose with the change of management, the change in, I suppose, the addition of, as we all know, Davy Fitz is there in the backroom team as well. It's probably taken Cork maybe, they were so used to the game they were playing. I suppose a few key players missing, Orla Cronin, Orla Cotter's not there. I suppose maybe it's just taking a while. The term transition is used a bit. I suppose they are seriously in transition at the moment with their older experienced players, their younger players coming through, great girls coming up from minor, and I suppose just with the change in management, it probably has set them back a small bit this year. But to still reach an All-Ireland final and only lose by a point, they just don't go away. Cork are not going away, so that's a real credit to them, but I suppose getting to grips with the new coaches on the sideline, new management, it's not easy even for teams that have, been together and been so successful like Cork for years,
It is an incredible staying power by both these teams. When you think back to that All-Ireland final in 2016 that Kilkenny won by 4 points. Since then, like they played each other the following 2 years after that. Kilkenny were only beaten by Galway, Kilkenny lost both those. Kilkenny were beaten by Galway the year after, came back and beat Galway, and then Cork played Galway last year and they end up back here again. Like, is this a proper golden age rivalry between the two teams at the moment? And is the needle certainly would seem to suggest it is?
The top 3 are there and thereabouts. Not there and thereabouts, they're there. They're there always. You have your Kilkenny, Cork and Galway, and it's so hard for other teams at the moment to try and break through. I do think, Waterford had a really, really good chance this year of coming through that Cork semi-final. They put up a great performance against them. But again, as you said, it's the staying power. I suppose it's the mentality. Cork they just keep coming back. And, I suppose Waterford would be the closest at the moment to kind of coming close to the top 3. But I really thought that once Kilkenny had kind of, Kilkenny and Galway would have been the best 2 teams in the country this year, I would have said. And I suppose Kilkenny got the harder semi-final draw against Galway. But when they overcame Galway, I genuinely thought that they would be, they'd breeze into this All-Ireland final and they'd really take it in their stride. But, again, all credit due to Cork. They really, put a halt to the gallop after, they took off at such a high speed.
One of the things that we've talked about there is Kilkenny's ability to come back from these heartbreaking defeats. Cork are now going to be charged with doing the same thing, but do we expect the same Cork team? It's obviously, as we know, some changes in the backroom team. Davies Fitz has stepped away, so will some of those older players step away now too, do you think?
Yeah, it's a hard one to say. Like, they haven't won silverware in a while now. I know those girls are just, they'll be, in agony this morning waking up. The likes of Ashton Thompson. You have, Katrina Mackey's been such a soldier for Cork over the years. Chloe Sigerson. I suppose Laura Tracy's put the hand up there at centre back as well. There's those girls around for a long time. They're still not, none of them, I'd say they're not even 30, some of them, do you know what I mean? So there's I don't know. I think they'll be hurting. And I do think that the draw of winning silverware could bring them back. But, as I said, I do believe that Kilkenny and Galway are the best two teams in the country at the moment. So, whether they see it as, I suppose a goal of theirs to come back and try to, get back in the top two teams in the country. It's a tough mountain to climb now. As I said, between the transition of the younger players, the older players. We saw Gemma O'Connor stepping away last year. I don't know. I think time will tell. They're not. There is still something for them to get out of this championship next year. But I suppose time will tell.
In terms of the difference between the two teams yesterday, is it just that at the very last minute the free goes over and Ashton Thompson misses, and that's sport. Sometimes one team wins. They're not necessarily the better team, even though coming into the game you thought they had been the better team. In the end, there was nothing between these sides.
Yeah, I genuinely thought that Kilkenny, as I said, had been the most consistent team all year. And I suppose the goal was a funny one. Kilkenny didn't really look like, Cork's defensive setup was quite good. They didn't really look like they could have, they didn't come close to scoring a goal, I suppose, all throughout the game. But they really, really pressed on. They knew they had to score that goal. And, it was very disappointing for Amy Lee. I don't think she made, a huge mistake, really. She'd set up to save a goal because they needed a goal. It was the last minute of the match. She knew there was going to be a goal shot coming in. It ended up taking a dirty deflection. It was loopy. She ended up backtracking. It was I suppose in a way it was nice for Kilkenny to get a break like that because, as I said, Cork were so used to getting those little breaks in All-Ireland finals in 2017, 2018. But, do those breaks just happen because of luck, or is it, they're grinding them out really? I don't know. I do think Kilkenny on form all year, deserved to win yesterday, but no one deserves to win an All-Ireland. You have to grind it out. So yeah.
Had you Kilkenny down as your All-Ireland champions before the year began, when you take into account all the retirements, the people who've gone travelling, obviously the bad injuries that happened to a couple of their players? Did that dissuade you at all before the championship began that they might not get over the line?
I suppose there's been injuries and travelling and retirements everywhere, really. So no, I still think even with the likes of the Doyle sisters and doing their cruciates, I suppose Galway had their fair share of bad news as well, in Rebecca Henley and Orla McGrath, and Cork, I suppose, as we know, Orla Cronin was a huge loss there yesterday. So I think with all the players that ended up, not playing this year in the senior championship, it was all kind of every team, suffered their blows, I think. So I still would have said Kilkenny, it would have been my front runners, even with I suppose Katie Power being back as well was huge. So she was a nice little addition back into the team when for that All-Ireland final after missing it, through injury in 2020. So I think in the grand scheme of things, every team suffered their blows. Every team this year, I suppose, had a lot to deal with injuries. So yeah, I don't think it made Kilkenny had the depth in their panel to just bring on girls who with little experience So I don't think it made a huge difference. No, I still would have said Kilkenny would have been number one for me anyway.
Katie Nolan got player of the match on TV last night. Was that the correct call, or could potentially Miriam Walsh have been able to shout for that as well?
Miriam was unreal from play, and myself and Sarah Donovan are big fans of Miriam Walsh. We'll always, always back her up. Just unbelievable talent. Just to have someone such a presence in the square at all times, and just she got some fantastic scores yesterday. But Katie Nolan, I think, deserved her man of the match award. Just so solid on the frees, and just to have I suppose Denise Gall, unbelievable free taker. Denise decided yesterday, she missed one, and here you go, Katie, up to you now. And Katie just, relished the challenge. She was fantastic from play, so solid on the frees. I think she was great. Super player for Kilkenny, and has just had really consistent years. So definitely well deserving of her man of the match yesterday. Definitely, yeah.
We should probably give a mention to the junior final as well, which Antrim won, and one of the great performances we're ever likely to see on All Ireland final day came from Dervla Cosgrove, who scored 4 goals and 2 points, a hat-trick of goals in the space of 84 seconds. I'm not sure, David Clifford playing minor for Kerry kind of comes to mind when you see those sort of statistics.
Geez, what a dream day for them. I saw Armagh playing this year actually against our Limerick junior team. They gave them a bit of a hiding. They were unreal. Armagh were fantastic. And for Antrim to come out and just have a performance like that, as you said, I think Dervla took it into her own hands. There at one stage she just, oh my God, she could do no wrong. Scoring, one of the quickest hat-tricks scored in probably many sports, so it was amazing. I was actually just so delighted for them, because they just didn't even let Armagh play yesterday. They were so used to playing so freely and putting up such high scores, and it was just really Antrim's day yesterday, yeah.
How important are those intermediate and junior grades in terms of being a pointer for maybe next season and some of the talent that might come through to some of the senior teams? Because I know Brian Dowling was making that point around Sophie Dwyer coming off the intermediate panel this year and saying, listen, I'm going to be a senior.
Yeah, and same Finola Neville there for Cork, starting centre forward yesterday. She was playing with the intermediates for, a few years as well. So you see there, Cork did have their intermediate team laying yesterday. Galway had theirs. That's just a sign of how strong those two counties are. I do think the second string teams in the counties are so important for development. Those girls can go off and play, in-house matches, 60 players there, between the two squads. But not only for second string teams, but for the likes of Antrim, Armagh, winning, yesterday for Antrim is huge. Antrim are taking part in, senior, league this year. They put up great, they're absolutely flying it up there. And it's just such I suppose the day out in Croke Park, it's amazing. We were there, we won the intermediate in 2014. It's just such an important day out for counties. It's great to see some silverware coming back, and I suppose just getting some recognition for all the hard work you put in all year, and just being able to play on the biggest stage and the biggest day. It's so important, and attendance figures were quite good yesterday, so I suppose just a bit more promotion needed now. I suppose getting Glen Dimplex in this year as sponsors is amazing, just to freshen it up a small bit. So I just think that Camogie's in a good place, but these junior, intermediate, those finals are so important for both developing your second string team players into senior players, and for the counties that are competing at the junior grade, just to kind of take the step up then the following year.
Yeah, well, there's no reason why Antrim shouldn't be competing at senior level, given the size of the county and the resources available to them, and their tradition of producing senior All-Ireland winning teams. The Antrim GAA has had a lot of help, but needs a lot of help, and certainly you would hope that they're getting their house in order. One last question for you: who's the player of the year?
Oh, I don't know. She's hard to look past. I think Denise Gall again. I just think she's been so solid all year. I'm just gonna. I'd go with Denise. I just think absolutely the one player you'd want on your side to be able to step up, to give away, to be able to admit that, oh geez, I'm not having a great day on the frees, to give them to another player, and then the dying minutes there's another free, and this is mine. Hand up. I'm going to score this. She did. She popped it over the bar. I just think for consistency, that's a girl I'd like to have on my team. Denise Gall again.
Fiona, good stuff. We'll leave it there. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Thanks, lads. Bye.
That's Fiona Hickey there giving us her thoughts on the All-Ireland Camogie finals. Manchester United, according to The Athletic, in for Adrian Rabiot.
Yeah. A guy who is a very, very good footballer, but a guy who's obviously, brought a certain energy to a dressing room that isn't always positive to both his international and club dressing rooms in the past.
A character.
A character, sorry, that's the phrase I was looking for. He's the definition of a character. So this is David Ornstein of The Athletic, who is reporting this morning that they're going to go in for the fella who is now 27 years of age. He's into the final 12 months of his contract at Juventus. It could potentially be an indicator that they are leaving the race to sign Frankie de Jong. So what he says is United must decide whether or not they try and close out this proposed signing of Rabiot, irrespective of their ongoing attempts to secure Frankie de Jong, or wait to discover how that pursuit finishes before making a decision on Rabiot. But
12 months left on his contract, so you presume they're getting a reasonable deal. Transfer Market says his current value is 15 million, so that's what, 35 for Manchester United?
For Manchester United, they might get it just to below, they might get it to like 27 or something like that. So is this verging on the panic button? Maybe not even in relation to yesterday, but maybe in relation to the de Jong signing going down the toilet.
I think you need to get a body or bodies in there to make training a bit more intense. Somebody who has a bit of swagger, who isn't scared of winning matches at home against Brighton.
Yeah, like he definitely would bring swagger, you would have thought. I'm not sure it definitely can't hurt, I suspect, unless the off the pitch stuff becomes a bit of an issue, and like maybe in the first season of your career, or the first season of a new club, that's not something that necessarily comes to fruition at all. So like I think Juventus have been relatively keen to maybe get him off the books, or have been trying to at least disguise that so that they can get a few quid for him. Like I think the likes of Aaron Ramsey was probably in that same category with him a couple of weeks ago as well, where they're trying to get a few bodies off their books. But it wouldn't be a bad signing, I guess.
Adrian Rabiot's ma appears to be a bit of a
she's
character.
a big, herself and the Mbappe family famously had
issues,
I think, wasn't it, at Euro 2022. Veronique, if I remember correctly. I think we did a beef is real. I think Kylian Mbappe's dad and Veronique Rabiot are not BFFs.
They were on opposite sides.
They were on opposite sides of the bust-up that resulted in France not delivering on their favourites tag at last year's Euros.
He's already being labelled the French Fellaini. There's not a lot of credit in the bank when it comes to the player or the people making the decisions about who to sign for Manchester United. The trouble is, because they get linked with absolutely everybody, there's kind of a stench around it. Like, they might not sign Arnautovic. They might not actually have been linked with Arnautovic in any meaningful way. Apparently a bid was turned down. Was it? Do you know? That comes out publicly. Was that actually factually a bid? Was that made? Or does every team send out like how much is that player, how much is that player, how much is that player? It's just like a message coming from your server going, what's the current price, what's the current price, what's the current price, what's the current price? And Arnautovic is like number 177 on a list of 700 players. But there's not a real thing. But that the agent, Arnautovic's agent, hears that there's been a phone call. His name has come up in an email, a list of these players. And suddenly it's like, a bid's been made. But it hasn't. But now everybody thinks, these guys don't know what they're doing. They're trying to sign that guy.
The only thing is that Ten Hag has worked with Arnautovic in the past, so maybe that's why, out of the list of 180 names, that's why this is the story, because the dots connect on more than one level. It's not just the automated server email, it's also the other side of things that he's worked with them in the past. But if they go ahead and actually sign him, then maybe that will be proof that these guys don't actually know what they're doing. The Rabiot thing, to a lesser degree, I think it was after Mbappe's penalty miss, by the way, that Veronique Rabiot was pretty annoyed and gave it to the Mbappe family.
Right.
Yeah. At their lowest point.
Yeah. He's injured at the moment. He's got a head wound from one of his teammates who kicked him in the head accidentally, not on purpose. This is not a John Hartson, Isle Berkovic situation.
No.
This is a completely accidental clash of heads. So I don't know if he'd actually be available to play very soon. It might be a couple of weeks before the 6 stitches in his head. Football doesn't really care about that kind of stuff, so probably get out there, stick your skull cap on and play for us next weekend.
Like we said at the top of the show that Chelsea against Spurs is the game to watch this weekend, but it's not really. It's Brentford versus Manchester United at 5:30 on Saturday night, isn't it? That's where it is.
The range of outcomes is large. Where's the game?
It's in Brentford.
Right. Rabiot, only the 2 million Instagram followers though, so that's progress from if you care about that kind of stuff and you think that the club is trying to get its soul back, then maybe signing a player who's only 27 could still be entering his peak years.
Yeah, like
relatively cheap,
and like he's proven himself. Like we've all watched him in the Champions League. He's a very good player. It just seems that the talent that he displayed maybe 4 or 5 years ago just hasn't been consistently shown in the intervening years, and that is one of Manchester United's biggest problems, is that they've had players who've also worn the stripes of Juventus, who've shown glimpses of brilliance and haven't been able to do it consistently. And I would say that has been one of the criticisms you could level at Rabiot over the last couple of years.
At the end of COVID, wasn't Anthony Martial going to be really, really good?
And right after COVID, he was really good. It was then the off season happened, and it was the start of the season then that he was just very, very disappointing.
I still don't think Martial's a complete bust, and I think that if Ten Hag is going to make it at Manchester United, players like Martial are going to have an impact. They're going to have to score 10 to 15 goals this season. He's going to have to get Rashford back hitting the target from the chance that they got yesterday. A big debate between Nathan and Brian Kerr about whether or not the offside would have been given by the VAR afterwards, and I don't know. We'll never know if VAR would have corrected the offside flag of. But the fact that he missed, the cruelty is how it was referred to by one of the reporters, like how cruel it was for this hollowed out player to be given the opportunity to show that he would have missed anyway. Whereas if the flag had gone up, it would have been like, oh, I definitely would have scored that.
Yeah.
It's like, and then he didn't. So I don't know. Rabiot, if they'd signed him, if they could have got the deal done before the news breaks, you'd be like, oh, they're doing some stuff that we don't know about. That they aren't just this leaky vessel where it's
everyone. Like there doesn't seem to be any Manchester United insider anymore. Everybody's an insider. Like every single UK outlet seems to have their finger on the pulse when it comes to the inner workings of Manchester United.
Which is not a great scenario.
No, or just a lot of good Manchester United journalism going on.
Well, that's true, and so many opportunities for it as well. Interesting piece in the we're going to talk to Phil Thompson in a moment, by the way, about Liverpool, but interesting piece about Steven Gerrard, why Gerrard might have blundered by freezing out Mings, and then they just feel like on a fairly rudimentary level, right? Bournemouth have 2 of the 5 tallest players who started Premier League matches at the weekend. Tyrone Mings tall, Villa concede from set pieces. It's like that's going to be interesting for Manchester United at the weekend.
For Brentford.
Brentford, sorry, not Bournemouth. I keep getting confused.
Yeah, the 2 new kids on the block, post 2015 Premier League influx of teams beginning with the letter B.
It's a good round.
Is there anybody else? Well, once Birmingham got relegated, those dreams were dead of a possible triumvirate of teams beginning with B. This is good content. Brentford, how tall they are, I'm not quite sure if they have the same height as Bournemouth do. But you're saying that Steven Gerrard shot himself in the foot by dropping things. He left him on the bench and didn't even bring him on, by the way, which is tantalising for him.
Yeah. I don't know, it's not a good start for Villa. It's a continuation of the situation they found themselves in. I'm hijacking this Manchester United conversation. I shouldn't have. Sorry. There's a new midfielder on the way, and it looks like. Now, hang on. They have reported before that these signings are imminent, and then nothing happens. So, presumably, this isn't going to be that protracted. He's been left out of the squad by Juventus. Juventus want rid of him. He's 12 months left. You can get the deal done.
Surely this is an open goal even for the transfer people at Manchester United. No. Maybe this is just like the way, what do they say, like if you're one of your players is like short in confidence, just do the right thing next, just do the simple thing next, just play a few passes. Maybe the transfer department at Manchester United are like, right, we got to knock our heads together, we just have to just get something done.
Yeah,
we just need to get over the line, just get the confidence back. What's the lowest hanging fruit? Adrian Rabiot.
Yeah, and maybe it'll be less than 20 million, and everybody will be like, "Oh, that's fine. He looks like a Premier League player. Is he a top 4 Premier League player? We'll see. Maybe some other players around him will come in."
Yeah. What are the wages then? Is obviously the other question.
What's going on at Leicester? That's the other thing here.
Yeah, obviously things looked very, very rosy for them for a period of time yesterday, and I kind of thought before the season began that Leicester were going to have a resurgence this season. That if you were picking who's best placed to finish 7th. At the end of last season, I would have said Newcastle, because Newcastle were obviously going to sign a whole host of amazing footballers. And Eddie Howe was basically saying last week that it hasn't necessarily been possible. He's put it down to financial fair play. Now, there are still a couple of weeks left and they have signed some players, but it hasn't been the whole sway of the players that you'd imagine they would have needed to break the top 6. So I would have had Leicester as possibly the front runners to get 7th. And I gather from the tone of your question there that the mood music out there is that it's not going to happen for them.
Well, it looks like several of their best players are available at the moment for the right price.
Yeah,
So-
like obviously Maddison would be the main one that looks like he's going to be going out the door.
And Fofana,
Yeah.
like Chelsea are in for Fofana for 60 million, then 70 million, and then it looks like they'll go to 80 million to sign him. And I mean, does Thiago Silva get dropped then, or does it, I don't know. That's a good Chelsea team.
Yeah,
like who
Yeah,
just
he-
invested $250,000.
He was playing
Quarter
yesterday.
of a billion.
A $250,000,000. Like he was playing yesterday for Fofana, played the full game. Soyuncu was on the bench. I don't think he played a minute for Leicester yesterday. That centre-back partnership and not having them for a good selection of last season was one of the main reasons why they faltered, I would have thought. Like, it didn't seem they could handle too much the midweek fixture list as well, and I thought this season they'd be much better placed, but the early signs not great.
All right, 19 minutes past 9. We'll get a bit more on the football with Phil Egan next.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
OTB Sports, in association with Cabri FC, are returning with a monster football roadshow. Coming your way August 17th.
Football legends Michael Owen.
If you haven't got that attitude, then you'll never survive.
Ian Wright.
Lots to look forward to.
Emma Byrne.
That's normal, that's all in the game. Level is gone through the roof.
And Karen Carney will be our guests at Vicar Street.
As they look back on their playing days and preview the new 2022-2023 season.
This is an exclusive off-air event and tickets are limited, so don't delay. Go to otbsports.com/events.
And remember that the ticket proceeds will go towards supporting Irish women's grassroots football.
T's and C's apply. See you on the night.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Phil Egan's with us. We're having some trouble with old Phil, so we're getting young Phil. Phil, how are you?
Younger Phil.
Younger Phil.
Yeah, all good, yeah.
Adrian Rabiot is the news this morning. He's the latest in a long line of players to have been linked with Manchester United. There seems to be a bit more around this one. David Ornstein of The Athletic is reporting that they're trying to close out this deal. He's been left out of the club team for a pre-season tour. He made a short appearance yesterday, the day before, against Atletico. Got a kick in the head for his troubles, but seems to be on the way out. Is he what Manchester United need?
He'd be an upgrade on what's there. So I think that's probably the thinking behind it, but he is probably not the player that's going to transform the United midfield. I think he'd be a complementary midfielder to a better midfielder, but they don't have that at the moment because for some bizarre reason they started the season with McTominay and Fred. Fred was taken off first, but McTominay was awful.
Should have been sent off, shouldn't he?
Could have been sent off, and he was just clumsy, and he just has games like that, and he doesn't seem to have much football intelligence when you watch him. Like, he's an incredible athlete, he's quick, he's obviously quite big, and he actually isn't the worst finisher, but yeah, there was just a real lack of a game plan. I think that's what everyone was tuning in to see yesterday, was how will United approach this. But after a few minutes and Brighton kind of settled into it, it was a comfortable enough afternoon for Brighton, and probably something in the comments from Ten Hag about the players lacking self-belief, that they don't have confidence, they're brittle. As soon as they went behind, you kind of felt like, you know, they rallied a bit in the second half, but when they were 2-0 down, did anyone think that United were going to come back and win that game? I certainly did, and I thought maybe they might get a draw just because of the nature of the Old Trafford factor, and like, it is a thing. Like, Brighton hadn't won at Old Trafford. Brighton have played well at Old Trafford in recent seasons and have come away empty-handed, but
everybody's getting their first win at Old Trafford in 20, 30, 40 years over the last 2 seasons. That's what's happening now.
Yeah.
That like, anything that they had. So even last year, Ronaldo would score 2 late goals against bad teams and they would win games that they should have lost. But that's, like, he's starting at a very low base, and I actually think signing somebody like Rabiot, you know, he's really replacing Jesse Lingard in the squad, or Juan Mata in the squad, and if you can get more from this player than those two, then your squad is improving. This is not going to be sign Alisson and sign Virgil van Dijk and become suddenly competitors again, because that team already had loads of great players in it. Like, Man United do not have any great players at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Rabiot obviously is going to take the place of Fred or McTominay. But
you would hope in
terms of they need depth in their squad as well, because also these underperforming players need a kick up the backside. They need to know that if you play as bad as that again, like, you won't be playing. And unfortunately, for the last few years, players at United have played badly, and they start the next week, and you get comfortable, and you just think that all I have to do is just maybe throw out an apology on social media, and that will keep things sweet for a while, and then we'll go again. But also, like, the link of the Arnautovic thing, that was just, I mean, if United fans were feeling bad after watching the performance yesterday, then to see that, like, what good would Marko Arnautovic bring to Manchester United?
If you want to add Marko Arnautovic to the squad and you've signed 5 other players and you do it in the very early days, the dog days of there being no football, that's fine. But if that's the first thing that happens in the immediate aftermath, after a crushing home defeat on the opening day of the season, it looks like you're really badly run. Even if they got the Rabiot thing out at full time yesterday, we're 24 hours away from this, that would have helped with we understand there are issues, we see what's going on, but you talked there about they need depth. Spurs arrived, or Conte arrived and said we need depth, and they've got depth in 2 transfer windows. Now again, a much better squad in that they have genuine world-class players in that squad, and so therefore they're working with better material. I don't know, is Jadon Sancho going to make it? I don't know. The assumption was that a new manager will come in and know what to do with him, and he'll suddenly look really good.
I think if things start going well under Ten Hag, Sancho will be part of that, because it's very hard to you can see where Sancho fits into a system, but if the system hasn't worked yet, and look, it's going to take time, but unfortunately there is still too many players at United. And like Arnautovic, what I mean there is, to become a really good club again, they need to have a better culture. Their dressing room culture stinks, and Arnautovic is not somebody you throw into that dressing room. And part of me would say the same about Rabiot, who wouldn't be a very disciplined player the way that we're told Eric Ten Hag is all about discipline. Rabiot, there's a talent there, but you want players that will dig in when the going gets tough. I'm just not sure about that. I think when things are going well, Rabiot will be grand, but there is a serious problem with the culture in that dressing room.
It feels like Manchester United are like addicted to the drug of what an immediate signing can give you. Like a 27-year-old Rabiot who has proven he can do really good things at times, not very consistently, but he has proven he can do really good things. It feels like United are just addicted to that sort of signing, as opposed to the methodical planning that comes with the turnaround of a club, which is what United need, where it's years and years of work, of signing players of the right age profile, so that when they become the age of Adrian Rabiot, they're playing alongside another bunch of 25 to 30 year olds who are willing to win for the team and ready to win for the team. Like, this is just another series of plasters that Manchester United are hoping to administer.
Yeah, you used the word planning. There is no planning. That's the problem. Or if there is, it's all short term. You need people that understand modern football and what you need from players. Like, talent doesn't cut it anymore. Like, you need to have a certain attitude as well, and like a character to be able to make it at the very top. And
so what are your concerns about Rabiot specifically?
Well, first of all, I think he's quite limited in, technically he's a decent enough player, but from whenever I watch him, he's one of these players that takes the safe option when he's on the ball. And I remember the first time I saw him play, he was a teenager at PSG, and that was a PSG team who were dominating the French league. This was a team with Zlatan. This was a team with Cavani. Obviously, Thiago Silva was there. Verratti was in midfield. And I saw him in the flesh play, and, sideways passes, ball back. Now, that's fine because he had better players around him. But is he going to be a transformative player? I don't think so. But the thing is, he's still going to be an upgrade on Fred and McTominay.
Yeah, and is that enough?
But that's not really a great starting point for a game into the season, and you're signing a guy you think, well, you know what, he won't be as bad as the other two.
Well, maybe he's the player who makes a lot more sense when they get somebody else beside him.
Yeah,
and so that's the planning here, is that actually they're planning for next transfer window when they get whoever that central midfielder is going to be, and suddenly you've replaced Fred and McTominay with Frankie de Jong and Verratti, and everyone's like, oh, Verratti, obviously, sorry, a slip of the tongue, Rabiot.
Yeah. United wish they had Verratti.
There you go. But like, at least that is like not just this guy's not going to be the silver bullet, but him plus somebody else is going to be a midfield that gives us flexibility and tactical. Like, I don't.
They still like.
Could they play Christian Eriksen there to just get them through this period, where at least somebody who knows and wants the ball is on the ball?
Yeah, well, I mean, there was that incident in the first half where Fred got the ball. He came looking for it on top of his centre halves, and he got dispossessed. And Trossard had a chance, but just wasn't able to square it. But yeah, when you see players like Fred and McTominay trying to get on the ball, it doesn't really instill confidence, and they just don't look very comfortable. Eriksen obviously is a player that from deep could do things, but you also need somebody that can get the ball back for you, and that's not really Eriksen's game. You need somebody that's like the first instinct is to go hunting for the ball, but can actually do it properly. I don't mean throwing yourself into tackles and full-blooded tackles and everyone says, oh, that's great commitment. McTominay did that yesterday, but I wouldn't classify anything he did as positive yesterday.
Do you know what? If Manchester United are looking for quick fixes, Gini Wijnaldum's name was being chanted around the Stadio Olimpico last night. It was an amazing unveiling.
Yeah.
Getting him on loan from Paris Saint-Germain, I think, is a really good piece of business. That would have been exactly what you're talking about. There's the sort of midfielder who can deliver magic on the ball, but most importantly, actually win possession back and do the dirty work in midfield. It would have been perfect for this Manchester United midfield.
He's never going to United.
No, he never would have, I guess.
For money.
Nah.
But the thing is, from PSG to United would have been possible. Obviously, post Liverpool, they were never done any business with United.
I mean, ask Michael Owen about that. You know?
Yeah.
When he's in town.
Yeah. Talk about Liverpool briefly. Daniel Harris made the point earlier on that, like, if you're trying to win the league, you look at the number of points that Man City get, and dropping points on the opening day of the season, it's not a complete disaster, but it's a little bit of a disaster, because already you're chasing them. Like, you know, I know it's stupid, it's completely overreacting, but
this is what City have done.
Look at their team. Look at City's team. Where are they going to drop points? Against who?
Yeah.
So maybe like West Ham might have a chance. Of all the teams that are out there, like,
yeah, I don't know. I think West Ham were short at the back. I think
literally and metaphorically.
Yeah. So I don't know. I get you what you mean. Like, with the kind of feeling with Liverpool would be they'd hit the ground running. They were awful on Saturday, but the positive I would take from it would be that they still got something from the game. Like, they weren't good. I thought it was interesting. He went with the same 10 outfield players that started in the Community Shield. Obviously, then Alisson comes in for Adrian, and that's just makes the team stronger. But Firmino wasn't good. Firmino, obviously, we know, wants to come deep for the ball, but it just meant that the two Fulham centre halves had an easy ride. Then as soon as Núñez came on, like, it was like Núñez obviously scores, he sets one up, he has a few chances, still looked a bit nervy at times, but at least when he came on, he was making runs. The two Fulham centre halves were occupied, and all of a sudden Mo Salah had a load of space, and you would imagine that now Núñez starts the next game and Liverpool will be a lot more threatening in attack. The disappointing performance, I mentioned Firmino, there was plenty of them. Joe Matip, who in the kick-off on Friday, we were talking about how good he is at bringing the ball out, but he just kept giving the ball away. That's where the Mitrovic penalty came from. He gave the ball away. But Luis Diaz had Tete on a yellow card early, and they just didn't get the ball to him enough. So Diaz, as good as he is, brilliant dribbler, because you've lost Mane's goals from that position, there's a lot of pressure on him to be scoring goals. So it's look, it's still very early days. I thought Klopp was no over, like, obviously the thing that was picked out of his interview was about the pitch, but actually if you look at the whole interview, he put his hands up and said we just weren't good enough. And was that a case of, were they undercooked? I mean, they looked fairly sharp against Manchester City in the Community Shield. We don't know what kind of work they did in between that, but we know that they were trying to play a behind closed doors game against Villa yesterday. That game didn't go ahead, but Klopp obviously feels that his players need more work.
For the first time.
By the way, Fulham were good as well.
I was just going to say that you probably saw the stat for the first time since joining Liverpool. Virgil van Dijk was dribbled past by an opponent and conceded a penalty in the same game, and Alexander Mitrovic was the man to do both of those things.
Well, he scored 43 goals last season, and he must get sick of people saying, yeah, can he do it in the Premier League? 11 is his most in the Premier League.
Nobody's saying that. It's a fact. Like, he
but
has
the goal,
the Premier League.
the first goal, that is the ball that he needs in. I know people are giving out about Trent Alexander-Arnold, and I'd say as soon as he tried to jump, he was pinned down by Mitrovic. He's physically an absolute beast when it comes to that kind of ball that was in.
Ever since he lobbed Mark Travers, his career has just been on the upward trajectory.
He's only 27.
Yeah.
You know, like and he's very, very experienced. So you wouldn't be surprised if he ripped it up this year and is playing Champions League football next season for somebody.
Yeah, like Silva's a good manager. Maybe he just found a way of getting the best out of him and realises that he's the key to them surviving.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't play really in the last campaign, in the last Premier League campaign. He wasn't... Scott Parker couldn't really find a system to suit him, but obviously Marco Silva did that last season. 43 goals is a phenomenal return, and people say, yeah, it's only the second tier, but...
Haaland versus Mitrovic for the Golden Boot.
For the Golden Boot, yeah. It'll be interesting to see, but Salah will be up there. Obviously, Kane didn't... We know Kane doesn't like playing
September?
August. Now he actually had a chance. It was a great save from Gavin Bazunu, who looks like he's going to have a very busy season.
Yeah.
But
any other takeaways from the Liverpool game? Like the midfield seemed to be...
Yeah, well, Thiago going off injured is not great, because he gave the ball away a few times from trying long passes, but he's still by far the best player Liverpool have in terms of keeping possession, where actually, do you know who made an impact off the bench was James Milner, and that's not meant to be the case. As in, look, it's great that he can do that, but you're kind of thinking that Liverpool should have stronger options in midfield. I felt before the start of the season they were light in midfield, and then when Thiago went off injured, it's not great, and you just wonder, will it force a rethink into maybe a formation change where he plays just two in there and plays one behind Darwin Núñez and Salah and Luis Diaz on the wings. Maybe it's whether it's a Carvalho or a Firmino in behind the striker, and then you can just have two City midfielders with Henderson and Fabinho. But
no change though in terms of transfers. You think they're done for this window?
It sounds like it. And the only thing, like, we would have thought maybe there'd be more outgoings, but the Kanate injury, Klopp said in his press conference that would affect players' outgoings. So that would suggest that somebody like Nat Phillips doesn't get loaned out if the Kanate injury goes on for a few months.
All right. Phil, good stuff. Thanks a million for stepping in. It's 9:36 this morning. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. We're back tomorrow from 7:30 with Deal or No Deal, Man City reaction with Sam Lee, and much more besides. Right now we're going to leave you with Brian Kerr after Brighton's win over Man United yesterday. Enjoy. See you tomorrow.
Well, Brian, new manager, but same old story for Manchester United, beaten at home on the opening day of the season, 2-1 by Brighton, and it's really hard to say it's any less than Brighton deserved.
I think Brighton deserved to win the match, Nathan, and a lot for Erik ten Hag to think about and assess. But look, you know, he's a new manager coming into the club. He saw them at the end of last season, would have been at the Crystal Palace match that they lost at the very end, and they went off and played the various games in pre-season and would have learned a lot about the squad and the players that they had. They've made some moves. They haven't signed an awful lot of players as yet. We saw the new centre-half, Martinez, playing today. We didn't see much else in terms of fresh new faces by any means. Christian Eriksen is not a fresh new face for the Premier League. Obviously he is for Manchester United. But so he will look back, I'm sure, at today's game with thoughts of I've a bit to do. We need to get some more players in. I'm sure he probably felt that way before, and most people feel that it's going to take him time to change and get Manchester United really competitive with the other top sides in the Premier League. But Brighton were the better team today. They were the more assured team, they're the more settled team, They had clarity about how they were trying to play, about the structure of the team, positional sense, the use of the ball, whereas Manchester United was a bit of a mix and match in the first match, a bit hop. It was all over the place, I thought, in terms of shape. There was no clarity to midfield players' roles, I thought, other than Fred was supposed to be sitting. So Brighton played very well, scored 2 excellent goals in the first half. I had to hang on a bit in the second half, which is understandable given Manchester United's desire, obviously, to get something from the game and their history of games in Brighton, who had never won at Old Trafford before today.
United has been a bit of a circus for, several years at this stage, but in the last few weeks, what's been going on with Cristiano Ronaldo was not ideal preparation. And there's been a lot of talk again of philosophy of manager. They're bringing in a manager with a set philosophy who likes high tempo, high intensity, high press, and Ronaldo doesn't fit that. Today he started Christian Eriksen as the central striker, almost as a false 9. Doesn't feel as though you can play that style of football with Christian Eriksen as your most attacking player either.
No, when I saw the lineup before the match, I wondered who was going to play up there. I presumed Rashford was going to play there, but that wasn't how they lined up. Sancho played in the right and Marcus Rashford played in the left, and it seemed to be that anyone from the midfield, with the exception of Fred, could break forward. Bruno Fernandes was in there, McTominay was in there, at times Christian Eriksen was, as you said, was the most advanced one. He was the one trying to close down the goalkeeper and the build-up play, and forcing Brighton at times to play it long, but that's not sustainable. I mean, Christian is a brilliant player, Eriksen, we know that. I always felt that Spurs accommodated his lack of mobility to a degree in terms of the combination of players in the team, and they allowed him to be the kind of final piece in terms of creativity in that Spurs team under Pochettino. I think in the early days he found it hard, when he went to Inter Milan, he found it hard to get into Conte's team, probably for those reasons, that he wouldn't work hard enough. We know how Conte demands that, but you see him now, and it's a couple of years on, will he be able to play that style of game as Ten Hag? We're led to believe that's how we want to play. We'll see. He may have to adapt it according as he evaluates the players they have, because certainly the Cristiano Ronaldo one is a problem for the manager, whether he likes it or not. The media attention, the focus on him, Ronaldo's own ego, his behaviour, his demeanour. Everything is examined, everything is commented on, everything reflects back to the manager. And I actually really believe that from Ten Hag's point of view, or Manchester United's point of view for the future, they'd be better off if they could move Cristiano Ronaldo on. But there's no obvious takers now of his wages or his ego.
The first 45 minutes, Brighton were brilliant and got at Manchester United time and time again. And maybe the tone for that first half was set in the first 15 seconds when Delot takes a little bit too long on the ball and Trossard almost gets in and gives Brighton a dream start. But they created a lot of chances and they cut through United so easily. Why was that? Is that the midfield of Fred and McTominay again, where an area they simply haven't strengthened? Is it Harry Maguire still lacking a bit of confidence, Delot not being at the level that you need for a full-back in the Premier League?
Well, the initial part of it, what you described, came a pass from Martinez across his own box. I thought Dalot's position wasn't very good. He was in too far, too close to the centre halves, and he was almost receiving the ball under his feet without being able to see the game in front of him, able to see the pitch. But then when he took the touch, the first touch wasn't too bad. The second touch was the one that caused the problem, where he was just too slow in making his mind up on what he was going to do, and allowed Trossard to make a little block and get in behind. Why the trend of the game was that Brighton were able to get in so easily, it's hard to be definitive on that, but I would suggest that United's midfield in general weren't mobile, that there was too much left on Fred to be the protector of the centre halves, with the full backs been slightly more advanced than they probably should have been, because Brighton exploited that space behind both the full backs and between the centre half on Maguire's side with Dalot, on the other side with Shaw. And I don't think Bruno Fernandes and Eriksen and McTominay in those advanced positions made United solid enough. And that's been an issue for Manchester United, to be solid enough in the middle of the field on a consistent basis, stop teams getting at them. They weren't today, and Brighton are a good side at exploiting those spaces, at looking at a weakness in the opposition team and finding those areas to make opportunities from, and that's what Brighton did today, particularly in the first half. Welbeck was very good. Pascal Gross was great. McAllister in the middle of the field. Trossard picking up the ball in behind Dallow so frequently. Solly Marsh on the right hand side. They had so many players, and the player who probably impressed you most of all, Concedo in the middle of the field. Excellent.
There's still a month to go in the transfer window, and you'd expect Manchester United will do some business. They've already signed Christian Eriksen, we touched upon. Malaysia came on at the end. Lisandro Martinez at the back, you don't want to pass judgment too quickly, but picked up a booking, was very lucky not to give away a penalty in the second half. Does it already look as though it's going to be him plus one of Varane and Maguire?
Well, I don't think today would have convinced you that the combination is him and anyone. I mean, there was no Varane today, no Lindelof. Maguire, I thought Maguire had a reasonable game. Second half, I thought he stepped in when Manchester United were throwing players forward and the full backs were ahead of them. That he stepped in to win the ball in front of Welbeck and keep the pressure on Brighton in that spell when they were chasing the equaliser. I thought all round he had a reasonable game. Better playing on the right than playing on the left. Martinez, the left-footed centre-back. Last year we saw a lot. Maguire on the left-hand side playing with Lindelof on the right, and he never really looked comfortable running with the ball from there. But I didn't think Martinez did enough today to say, well, he's the man. I thought he was poor on the second goal. He should have blocked the cross coming in from the end line. He didn't get there quick enough and wasn't aggressive enough about making the challenge. We saw him getting beaten in the air several times by Danny Welbeck when crosses come into the box, which is a question mark against him before he came. That he's not. You said he was 5'9", I think, in the commentary. But then we saw him coming forward and passing the ball quite well in the second half and having a good shot late on in the game when it opened up in front of him. So early to make a judgment on any player, I'd say, but there was nothing conclusive from it that I'd say he's the man, it'll be him with one of the other three.
A lot of the analysis of United was that last season was a low point, and maybe even the 4-0 defeat by Brighton was as low as they could get, and that
I think Watford was lower, 4-1 away to Watford, wasn't it?
Still something maybe to play for at that stage, but a sense that they would just have to be better this season. When you look at them there today and the fact that they trying to play it out from the back and it really doesn't feel like it suits De Gea, are the fullbacks as good as the fullbacks of the other top half of the table teams? They didn't sign a central midfielder. The Ronaldo saga hanging over them. Do you think United are going to be better this season? Do you think they have?
Well, I think they have to be better, Nathan, on the basis that they have a manager who's in place. They're hardly going to get rid of this fella after 6 months if it's not going to go well. So it has to be more settled and structured. Last year, Solskjaer was under pressure from fairly early on the season. There was whinging and moaning that they weren't going to be competitive enough, and that whatever faults he had, that he wasn't getting the best out of them, and it was too loose, and they weren't tactically aware enough, and he wasn't sure enough, and all those reasons. And then they went with the change, got rid of him, and they bring in Ralph Rangnick, and it just deteriorated further and further. So it's got to be better than that. I think this manager is clear enough about what he wants from his players, about the behaviour of the players, about the structure of the week, about the training, about what the work ethic is around the squad. And I don't think he'll take any mess. And I think it was noticeable today. We didn't see anything of Bruno Fernandes now waving his hands in the air and complaining to the other players about what they did, or whether they made the right pass or the wrong pass or whatever. So I saw that was a sign of straight away there's going to be no messing, no that the discipline is going to be a bit stricter, and the team are going to play as a team. So I think that's a good starting place. But I think he's probably also going to learn over the next while that some of the players aren't quite good enough, and that replacing them. I mean, I think they need a centre forward. Lukaku didn't work out when they had him. They weren't happy with him, and he was let go. But they need a centre forward that can run a bit. Not Ronaldo, And it's going to be very hard to get one of them because most teams in Europe are looking for one of them. Some of the English teams have one. Haaland was obviously highly valued. Manchester City have got him. Spurs have got one. Chelsea don't have one. They let Lukaku go this year. If you look around, Arsenal have a different type of player, having taken in Jesus, but they have other options that can play that role as the main man saying, but they got rid of a couple that weren't doing enough for them either, and that was a good move. I think for Manchester United to move forward from where they are, they need that, but I don't know where they're going to get that centre forward.
United will always be the story, but it shouldn't overshadow just how good Brighton were. Finished 9th last season, first time ever in the top half, in the top flight. A quiet summer in terms of incomings, obviously a bit of a sideshow with Cucurella, he's gone. But so many of that Brighton players, and I mentioned this to you, that every time we commentate in Manchester United, it almost feels like you can pick 2 or 3 players from the opposition that would improve Manchester United. And again today, in that area in the middle of midfield, like I said, even Adam Lallana at 34 looked a big step up, and tactically, particularly in that first half, it felt as though Graham Potter got it spot on.
Yeah, but then again, you look at Nathan, I said to you earlier today about when you got stability in the club and stability with the management, then you get stability in the team, and there's less chopping and changing the players and chopping and changing of positions, and they're excuse me, if the changes are being made, they're coming from a manager who's been there for a while. He's looking at the players, he's assessing what he has, and sometimes it's subtle changes, but it's not drastic. So I'd say the performance today wasn't any different from most of the performances last year with Brighton. Just because Basuma went and Cucurella went, it doesn't mean that the system goes out the window. It's just subtle. And Caicedo, as you said, coming in today, and he was magnificent. 20-year-old Ecuadorian, had a great game. And there wasn't an awful lot of upset or juggling or whatever. It was fairly smooth changeover of players. So again, the recruitment is clever. I said that before the match when Joe asked me about it, and there's a clear identity to how they play, understanding of what's required in each position, and it didn't change in the match today. The emphasis changed when they looked like conceding a goal, and they ended up with the wing backs back in place rather than in very advanced. But it wasn't very drastic. There was no, we better change the system because it's not working in the match. So I think you look at Brighton, many ways, Tony Bloom, they've been a model club in recent years. I remember I've gone to matches with you, gone to matches with other people there, and you always get a sense of a club, of a very welcoming club, but a club with a real ethic of treating people with respect and treating supporters and fans and whoever comes into the game, any staff of the opposition come in around the ground. That was the sense that I got when Chris Hughton was there, and I used to go and meet Chris after match. That's obviously continued. It's embedded into the ethos of the club. I think the players respond to that as well. I saw some of the interviews with the manager, with Graham Potter, and that all helps in terms of developing the side. And you know, they may not be going to compete for trophies in the short term, but they've made dramatic improvements in recent years from where they are, a club with no ground that was travelling 30 or 40 miles to play their home matches a few years ago. You look at where they are now, and they look like a very, again, I use the word, very stable Premier League club that can go to Manchester United and get their first ever victory there after 12 defeats and 2 draws out of the last 14 visits to Old Trafford. Today they earned their win, and they look the right good side.
So we've seen everybody except Manchester City and West Ham now on the opening weekend. Liverpool struggled for a long period, got that draw against Fulham. Spurs come from behind, brilliant victory down at Southampton with Gavin Bazunu in goal. At Chelsea, grinded out last night. And Arsenal start the season with a decent win as well. What's your sense after the opening weekend of what's ahead over the next 9 months?
There was no. My sense of was that there was no great surprises. Even today, we're not surprised that Manchester United struggled a little bit because of all the things that we've discussed a bit earlier. No surprise that Chelsea were able to do enough to beat Everton, who seemed to be in a little bit of I suppose disarray and short of quality at the moment in the attacking positions on the pitch, having to play Anthony Gordon centre forward yesterday. Chelsea have still got a very good squad, as much as the manager might complain about the losses of the players that that walked away at the end of their contracts, but they've managed to hang on to a lot of very good players and sign some very good players too. Arsenal played very well on Friday night. Tottenham played very well yesterday. Newcastle won convincingly in the end against Forest. There was nothing very surprising other than, I'd say, Fulham's performance against Liverpool was really, really good. Very, very well structured team, massively aggressive, and sustained that aggression. They didn't just close Liverpool down for the first 25 or 30 minutes of the match. They stayed at it for the whole game. Yes, they had to hang in a little bit late on when Liverpool were chasing the winner, but that was the most surprising performance, I'd say, of the weekend. And they look a bit more powerful and tougher looking than the last time they were there, and Scott Parker was the manager and they went down. They look all round much more physically stronger side, who are better prepared for the challenge ahead for to stay in the division, which I think would be good enough for them to have a good season.
Jurgen Klopp was very critical of his players and their attitude afterwards, and it is the second game and everyone raved about Liverpool's attitude against Manchester City in the Community Shield and the aggression they brought to that game. They were very flat, almost an arrogance, it felt, to Trent's play, to Van Dijk's play of, it'll just happen for us. And it didn't happen for them, and they looked a bit slow at times in midfield. Thiago's picked up another injury. Without overreacting, do you expect Liverpool next week to play Crystal Palace at home? Do you expect an instant response? Are there a couple of things there that actually might...
Well, I wondered in talking to Joe before the match today, and just can they sustain another season like the last few seasons where they've played this fabulous football? And always when I watch Liverpool, in comparison to watching Manchester City, where I always feel it's inevitable Manchester City are going to win the match, and they outpass teams into submission really. And at times it can be boringly beautiful at times in the way they play. Whereas with Liverpool, I always feel there's a bit of an edge to Liverpool that gives the opposition a chance to take so many risks, and they give the opportunity to the opposition to score goals. And a lot of their games are much more edge of the seat stuff, I feel. You just wonder, can they keep doing that and keep getting results as opposition over the years learn how to prepare better to play against them and to disrupt them and exploit some of the risks they take in defensive situations, whether it be the high line, whether it's pushing up the full-backs so far. I think they'll come back from yesterday. I was surprised at the performance yesterday, given how well they played against Manchester City and their attitude in the game. But I think you have to hand it to Fulham yesterday. Fulham disrupted them by their aggression, by their tenacity, by their structure, and their willingness to throw themselves into the game, to get into the as the phrase is used now, into the faces of Liverpool players. They never allowed Salah to get settled on the ball, or Diaz on the other side. Firmino has struggled to find any time or space to receive the ball in the sort of spaces we're used to him getting on the ball. Thiago once upset him a bit, but I thought Harvey Elliott was a real positive for Liverpool yesterday when he came into his game. Some of his decision making on his passing was so crisp and so creative that I thought this is a real plus. I can see why the manager brought him on. But overall,
can he play as one of the midfield three?
I think so. Based on what I saw yesterday, he is definitely, if the balance is right in there, it'll probably mean Fabinho and Henderson may be playing to allow him to be the third one. But he certainly improved the team when he came onto the pitch yesterday, and obviously Nunes had an influence as well when he came on through the middle. But it's just, with the points are so vital between the Manchester City and Liverpool thing. I think you pointed out before the match, what was it, 93 to 92 last year in terms of points. We've seen them knocking around the 100 points mark for all these seasons now. You wonder, is even the drop in the 2 points at the start of the first match, but it's 100 and is it 100? What did I say? 100. I did it earlier. 111, I think, points still to play for. You'd hardly think the 2 points dropped in the first game against Fulham is going to have a crucial impact on the season, but maybe it will.
I'm glad we had you here today, because if you'd managed to get to Bulgaria during the week for St. Pat's. We would have had you, not because of the celebrations, because of all the issues they've had in getting home. It was a great night for Pat's, and it's turned out to be a great European run. I'm sure you're enjoying it.
I am, Nathan, but I think it was very tough on the clubs in the league. I don't think Sligo Rovers or St. Pat's or Shamrock Rovers, if it comes to that, or if it was anyone else that was playing, should have to play those league games or the cup games last week, which ultimately proved fatal for Sligo Rovers and St. Pat's getting knocked out of the cup. The respect for League of Ireland football, for the general, say, people who are interested in sport in Ireland, but they're not part of the cult that follows the League of Ireland intensely. Their interest is only stored by the performances of our league clubs in Europe, and the respect of the League of Ireland only comes with those results to people outside that hardcore group that follow it, and say abroad. If they see Irish teams winning, I think the FAI should make every effort to ensure that the clubs have proper space, gaps between the matches, and no league competitive matches or cup matches in between. I know it's hard to do that with the fixtures and to get all the fixtures in for the season, and if Shamrock Rovers qualify, which I'm hoping that they will for one of the group stages, it's very hard to organise that. But we don't have the depths of squads like Liverpool or clubs like Manchester City or anyone else, or Spurs or Arsenal, that they can handle Thursday, Sunday football in Europe. It's really, really difficult, and I know that Pats went to, they had lots of difficulties about the flights and travel. I ended up myself going to Slovenia, and I felt I went halfway around Europe to get there, and I couldn't quite do the Bulgarian one. But all the clubs have had difficulties for the European Games this year. Shamrock Rovers have had to go to Sheahan, which seems a bit mad to get a flight to go to Malta. Sligo Rovers have had difficulties as well. They went from Knock the other day, as Pats did. Pats opposition, Mura, had to go to Knock to get home to Slovenia after match in Dublin the night before. It's mad stuff. I don't think it would happen if any other high